This episode of the podcast is brought to you by HRH Combat Arms. They can turn your vision into reality. They specialize in gunsmithing and Cerakoting. Your Cerakote specialist is Air Force veteran and retired police sergeant Paul Ware, a.k.a. the Sarge. He can Cerakote your firearms, auto parts, tools, even your sports equipment. And then your master gunsmith is Marine veteran Steve Miller. This veteran-owned business is located at 5025 Saunders Suite, 103, Fort Worth, Texas, 76119. You can call them at 682-304-0363, and you can find them online at www.hrhcombatarms.com. That's www.hrhcombatarms.com. All right, here we are. Two Cops, One Donut. I'm your host, Eric Levine. I have a special guest with me, the one and only Sgt Paul Ware. How are you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm glad to be here, but there's no donut.
There is still no donut. I know, you're right. I have reached out to one particular donut shop that I'm holding out for just because I know the owner. I really like their donuts.
All right.
And we were in talks of them possibly being a sponsor, so I'm holding out for them specifically. If that works out, that's going to be awesome. And I did look online for like a fake donut, like just to...
No, we don't do fake donuts.
No fake donuts. So if you have not watched the podcast before, you have not heard me brag about this man over and over and over because he's got his own commercial. He's our only official sponsor. I don't know if it's because he has a lot of confidence in the show or he's just knows some good product placement when he sees it. So he's a businessman. He owns HRH Combat Arms. And as you've seen, multiple weapons up here that he has done. We have a plethora of weapons up here that we're going to get into. But yeah, how are things going with the business?
You know, everything's going well. We've been fortunate this year. I think everyone stayed home during their little furlough from work and cleaned out their gun safes and brought them to us. And
yeah.
So, I mean, we really didn't see much of a downtick, but summer is always slower than any other time. Parents are taking their kids on vacation, other priorities.
Okay. So the slow time for gun season is summertime?
For coating and that type of work, absolutely.
Okay. Well, it's probably good for you. I've been in your shop, and it gets a little warm, so...
Oh, that's nothing. We had an AC unit go out last Saturday, so it was like 92 until this morning, and we just got it back up and running. So.
What was the deal?
Oh, the AC went out. I mean, we had to replace the inside and outside unit.
And, the whole thing?
Oh, yeah.
Dang. Insurance helping?
Oh, no.
Ouch.
Oh, no. It's out of pocket.
Dang.
But you also can't work in a shop at 92 degrees and do the work that we're doing. So.
Well, what's your partner? Embrace the suck. Ain't that their whole fucking motto for the Marines?
For the Marines, yeah, you should be able to handle it.
Right, big baby. But now it's different. You're Air Force.
I was in the Air Force.
Yeah.
No, I won't.
AC only.
AC.
Yeah.
Remotes for the TV. Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you. So, all right. Well, Sarge, you're more than just a gunsmith, and that is actually the end of what all you've accomplished so far in this chapter of your life. So I want to know, and I think everybody else wants to know, you're a seasoned police officer. You're a military veteran. So how did that all get started? Like, where are you from? How'd you get going down that path?
I was actually born up in Illinois, Rockford, Illinois. And, yeah, I see you smiling.
So you're a Yankee.
I am a Yankee.
I love it.
Moved down here when I was 5. When obviously, my parents moved down here. And went through all of my primary school here in Arlington. Graduated out of Arlington, or Sam Houston High School in Arlington.
Okay.
And really did not like school. I just wasn't a guy who's ready for college and signed up for the Air Force. And I remember that night we were at the dinner table and I told my parents, I said, I went down to the recruiters and signed up for the Air Force, and it was like hitting them with a wet, with a phone book.
Oh, they didn't even know.
No, they
just.
And,
how old were you?
Oh, I was 17, 18 probably.
Okay.
Yeah, because I had graduated. And I know Dad that had great plans for me to go to college, but it just wasn't in my future. I knew it wasn't.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
Yep. So
I couldn't see you doing college either.
No, I'm not that smart. I'm really not that smart. But that was in, graduated. I have to tell my age here. In 77, so so May of 77, and went in officially in January of 78. Is that right? I think so.
So you went into the Air Force.
Yeah, on a delayed enlistment.
Okay.
And went. No, I take it back. It must have been November of 77 because I ended up my first base was overseas, and I went over there in 78.
Oh, okay. Where was your first base at?
Well, I mean, as you know, everything's at Lackland. All your basic training's at Lackland. I was a security policeman, which is the predecessor to the current security force.
Yep.
And the tech school was there at Lackland, so I ended up doing basic tech school and then off to Camp Bullis, which was Air Base Ground Defense.
Still there
at I don't remember what their Army post is.
Medina, is that the one, or are you talking
Medina Annex is part of Lackland, but it'll come to me in a minute.
Say Camp Bullis is still there.
Yeah.
And then Camp Bullis,
but it's part of an Army post over there, and I don't remember what it is. And finished that up and went to Osan, Korea in April of 78.
Nice.
Did 1 year there, left Osan, went to Altus, Oklahoma, which was more remote than Korea was, to be honest with you, in 1978. I got there, and the big news and the grand opening was a McDonald's in Altus, Oklahoma.
Okay. Yeah.
So I ended up.
It's still that way.
It's still that way.
Almost.
Yeah, it's pretty small.
I did a jiu-jitsu seminar up there.
Yep.
And I looked at the map, and I was like, that's not a terrible drive.
No, it's
here.
not. No, it's a good drive.
And then when I brought the family, and we went out there and managed to book the only hotel they have there. Now that the Air Force Base is still there.
It is. No, actually, the Air Force Base has grown a bit because they're the schoolhouse for all the loadmasters and air refueling. So they just got the schoolhouse for the new KC-46, which is good for Altus. I mean, Altus wouldn't be there if it wasn't for the base right now.
Well, I was going to say, it's still very much a one traffic light town.
It's growing.
I
think there might be 2 hotels now.
Yeah, the Holiday Inn Express, which I think is what we stayed at. And then, so I went out there for that jiu-jitsu tournament. But on the way there, it became that stereotypical tornado alley look.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, the day I reported to Altus was 3 days after the tornado hit Wichita Falls up there and just devastated it.
Yeah. We had 3 touchdown around us, and I'm in a minivan with my kids traveling about as quick as that thing will let me safely go.
Wow.
And look for ditches, and I'm looking for a farmhouse, somebody I can drive to, and I'll break their door down. I don't care. Tornadoes scare the hell out of me. So I couldn't physically see them at the time, but they were reported right there. So we drove up a road, and some lady was like, come on in if you want, one of those things. And
hey, I was young and stupid when I was up in Oklahoma, and anytime there was a tornado, we cracked a beer open, went out on the fire escape at the dorms, and tried to find it.
I'm terrified of tornadoes. I don't know why. I think it's because my grandfather made such a big deal about them when I was a kid. If a tornado came in Michigan, it was like, get to the basement, he's like panicky.
Tornadoes in Michigan, really?
Oh, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. We've had F5s. It's big tornadoes.
Well, I mean, tornadoes
doesn't happen as often.
Yeah. But. I mean, I've got a picture of a tornado picking up and turning a C-5 aircraft 180 degrees.
And not hurting it?
No, well, it probably did damage, but I mean, a C-5 was the largest cargo plane in the Air Force's inventory. So
dang, huge. Bigger than the C-130s and all that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get well versed in the planes because I went to Montana. All we had was F-15s really, and those were reserve planes. They weren't even like active duty guys. Yeah. So, and then I'm still at Lackland for the reserves, but I don't have anything to do with planes. I do all the law enforcement side, training division. So,
well, I mean, I served my rest of my Air Force career. I only did 4 years in the Air Force, and I finished it out at Altus.
Okay, so you finished up there.
I left there in November of '81, and came back home. I'd already been accepted to the police academy down here in the Metroplex.
Okay.
And it was supposed to start in January. So I found a part-time job where a buddy of mine worked for a month, and it was a union envelope. You know, I was doing maintenance on envelope machines that made envelopes. You know,
Okay.
that's about it. And
So how long was the process for you to get hired on?
it was probably about 7 months because I had a background investigator that was not motivated. And luckily the dad of one of the detectives at the department was in backgrounds, and he walked by, picked up my file, and called me and says, "You know, what's the deal? Why aren't you down here completing your your background?" And I told him, I said, "Well, I've been waiting on a call." And he goes, "Show up next Saturday." And they were good to work with military people. They'd let you come down on the weekends and do your background stuff.
Yeah.
So I showed up on a Saturday, and he completely finished my background investigation. He did my physical and the run and all that kind of stuff. And if it hadn't been for him, who knows? It may still be on the desk today. You know.
My background investigator was retiring while I was going through.
Yeah.
So his mind wasn't in it either. And I was constantly having to call and keep
I hear
people on top of their job.
Yep.
I don't know what the deal is with background investigators. The ones that I've seen when I worked at the police academy, great. I never had or heard of issues with them.
Yep.
But prior to that,
I've heard horror stories, and I've seen good ones just like you. I know
Yeah.
several people that work down there that really took their job serious, and
that's good.
as they should.
Yeah.
You know, as they should.
Yeah. So
So that was, out in December of 81, started in January of 82
in the academy.
in the academy.
Okay.
Yep.
So 82, you got a fresh start in 82,
Yep.
exiting the Air Force. That's awesome. So how long was your transition from active duty to being hired on to a PD?
1 month.
Damn.
I mean, that's all I had is 1
That's
month.
beautiful.
I tell people all the time, I said, I think I've had 5 jobs in my life. I really have.
Because that's the scariest transition.
You know,
To me, when I was getting out of active duty, I was so nervous I was going to go without getting hired.
well, I mean, I only applied at one department, and that's where I wanted to work, and it all worked out. So,
Yeah.
was I fortunate? Probably.
Yeah. And you worked, man, when police work was,
Comparing
Amazing.
1982 or the early 80s to today, there is no comparison, I guess.
I don't think now I got lucky. I grew up with a dad that did the job, and I got to hear those stories growing up. So I knew how fun and a lot of the stuff that was done back in the day versus today, where most of that shit probably none of that shit would fly anymore today.
Oh, I don't think it would. You'd be a headline on the paper, or
You're right.
or in some kind of civil suit. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I don't think there's any new news stories here. When people get tired of crime and get tired of being victims,
Yep.
it's that wave. You're making that thing, and it's exactly right. As soon as people get fed up with it, they'll call for stronger law enforcement.
Yep.
And that's the type of law enforcement that right now everyone's protesting.
Yep.
The proactive cops that go out there and kick over every stone, and prosecutors that actually will go after criminals. And
I think we're reaching a crest on that. I'm thinking it's going to come back down.
yeah, I don't know.
Not too
I don't know
long
where
from
it is.
now. I don't know where it's at. I can't give you a date.
Yeah.
But so you get in 82. Did you always know you wanted to do law enforcement?
I don't know how to answer that, because at the recruiter in the Air Force, when I was in, there was 2 career fields: security, who basically did asset protection,
Guarding the planes, guarding the
missiles.
missiles. Yeah, stuff like that.
Absolutely. I mean, that was their primary function. And then there was the law enforcement section. So I signed up and got law enforcement, which is what I wanted.
Okay.
At Osan over in Korea, there was no law enforcement job. Everybody was there for air base defense.
Gotcha.
But at Altus, it was pretty much a law enforcement job. I do remember arriving that first week or two, and they had people gone on deployment. And my first job at Altus, Oklahoma, was to guard a C-5. And I go, dude, I'm law enforcement. I'm not security.
Yeah.
So, it was kind of weird. But like I said, back then it was 2 different career fields.
Yeah. So when you did, because today it's not like that.
No, it's not.
And it aggravates me because I think it was better that way. So tell me, back then, you got the choice, security or law enforcement side. Did you have to qualify to be law enforcement more so than you did for
It's
security?
as much of a choice as you had picking your base.
Uh,
It was a recruiter filling slots. You know that, and I know that.
Here's a dream sheet.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll give you an example with my son. My son went into the Air Force out of high school, and he was one of, I forgot what the percentage is, like 3 to 5% that will pass the flight physical.
Okay.
So he actually passed a flight physical. And he asked me what I would have done different than law enforcement. I said, I would have got into a flying job, seen the world.
Yeah.
So he passed the flight physical. He was going to get into air refueling. He was interested in that. Well, I still had contacts at Altus, so I called Altus Air Force Base and talked to people in the schoolhouse of air refueling up there. So they said, come on up. We'll show him around the base. We'll show him what the school's like. And that's what we did. We drove up there. They met us at the gate. They spent the entire day with my son. They took him to the schoolhouse. He met the commander, met the first sergeant. They stuck him in a simulator, took him out to the aircraft, took him to the dorms. And the commander sat there and says, if you come here, here's what we expect.
Yeah.
And he got a very good view of what it was all about and decided to go ahead and enlist, and he served 6 years. So, I'm very fond of the Air Force. Not only did it do me well, my 5 best friends still today are people that I met at Osan, Korea in 1978.
Yeah.
We talk weekly.
Yeah.
One of them was at my house Saturday, in fact, from Florida.
Nice.
So, great memories from the Air Force, and I think it's, whatever branch of the military you want to join, I think it's good for you.
It sounds like you kind of went through the same thing I went through. I reached a point in my life where I wasn't going the way I wanted to. And I used the military as a way to reach my goals
Oh, absolutely.
quicker. But I didn't realize how many outlets and networking the Air Force was going to provide me. I knew I could get the GI Bill. That was really the only big thing that I knew. I could get college paid for when I got out. I didn't know while I was in, I could be going to school and they pay for it and it doesn't touch the GI Bill. I didn't know that when I get out, I never have to put a down payment on a house because of the VA loan. I didn't realize that they had all these outlets to get you jobs, to get you set up with a resume, to do vocational training, to...
And I knew some of this when I was in, and I didn't take advantage of it. That's a fault of mine of not, getting at least an associate's degree when I separated out of the Air Force. And honestly, when I started talking about my son, I was going to give you the examples that he passed that flight physical and went over to MEPS, and he had to pick 3 jobs. So he picked, air refueling, and there was a couple others. And the MEPS recruiter over there says, we have a huge need for aerospace engineers.
Sounds fancy.
It's a mechanic, airplane mechanic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So he gets back to the recruiter here in Arlington. He goes, well, it looks like you got, aerospace engineering or something, whatever the proper title was. And I kind of blew a gasket. I went up there and saw this tech sergeant. I said, what is this? I mean, he's one of the few that passes the physical to get him into the job that he wants. And I remember his name is Tech Sergeant Green. He worked for about a week and got it switched, and he got into air refueling. So he became a boom operator on a KC-135.
Well, that's good.
But we were talking about kind of filling slots. You don't have much of a choice. I think they fill slots, whether it was security or law enforcement, when I was going in anyway.
Yeah. It's still kind of that way. And part of my bitch about that, and you tell me what you think about it as a person with a shitload more experience than I have. When you have, and this is the security forces side, so I'm still talking Air Force here. If I want to be a cop in the civilian world, I have to go through an extensive background check because I'm going to be trusted to enforce the law. It's the same principle on a base. I'm going to have arrest authority, and I'm going to be responsible for enforcing the laws on the base, which I know, depending on the base you go to, you'll have more chance to do that than others. You go to Lackland, you got a good cop job, you know, because you got it's a whole city. You got domestics,
absolutely.
thefts, and graduations are there every weekend. So you've got felons trying to get in. You got warrants to serve, stuff like that. Things that people don't expect from military cops. But like I said, there's a law enforcement side to it. If you're expected on the outside to pass this certain level, why is the same standard not kept for military cops? Because it is one of the lowest test scores you need on the ASVAB.
No, I agree with that. But
And if you don't get in another career field, or if you get booted out of one, they push you into the police career field. Doesn't make any sense to me.
But I know that, someone can call in and correct me if I'm wrong, but when I was in, we all had secret clearances. And people that went to the missile fields and some of these other jobs had higher clearances.
Yeah,
than
the
that.
PRP and stuff like that.
And so, I still think the backgrounds were done, and, you weren't getting anyone sliding in there that shouldn't have been. Although military police, or just like today's police or any other industry, we had some people that just shouldn't have been there.
But my argument would be, when you go to be a cop on the outside, it's because it's something you're interested in. Could you imagine being stuck in a police job and you don't want to be a cop? That doesn't make
you would never want to stick someone in that job.
No, that's my argument.
That did not want
that did not want that.
Right.
That's crazy.
No, I agree with that 100%.
So that's, if there's any top shot security forces guys listen out there, look, I don't expect you to understand fully the civilian side of police world, but take it from guys that have worked both sides of the house now. Please don't stick people in there that don't sign up for that job.
So do you believe we should stick them in there repairing jet engines on fighters?
Ooh.
That didn't want to do it. So, I mean, I think any of the critical jobs, and I think just about every career field in the Air Force is critical nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, you just don't want people there. I mean, we're all voluntary force.
It's true.
So you shouldn't have anyone, but we do.
Yeah.
That doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. They're there. Trust me. I've seen them.
Oh, I'm sure you see them. You see them on every reserve deployment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, I got mine coming up August 16th. I'll be gone for a month. So, expect to have a lot more security forces guys on the show. So I'm going to bring
traveling show.
I'm going to bring this stuff down there. So, we'll see what I can set up if I can manage it.
Range day.
So
that's what you need.
Range day.
Range day with the security police.
Oh, geez, that would be.
And at Lackland, you can go over there where they're teaching
be scary.
all the weapons to the security forces.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll allow that though.
Hey, they don't know who you are.
That's true. They don't. I show up there and they're like, "Who the fuck is this guy?" Oh, he's a weekend warrior. All right, stay out of the way.
Yep.
Let
Stand over there, please.
Yeah, let us active duty guys do the day in day out stuff. So. But it's that's my complaint with that side of the house. And now it's all combined, which is another part that, you sign up, you want to be the law enforcement side and you get stuck security.
Yep.
And then you never get a taste of the law enforcement side and you become bitter and you're like, and those people don't stay. They get out. I like when people choose military as a career. I love those guys that fall into it and just love it.
Well, I think there's more chance that they stay a career, or at least over 4 years, if there's a job that they like doing.
Yes.
Yeah, there's no doubt about
that.
that.
And I agree. And I think that's where, if retention seems to be an issue, because I don't know many people anymore that stay. I really don't. And I've, like you, I've got lifelong friends that they're still in, and I get it from them. They're like, dude, we don't keep people. Like, this career field scares people away.
Yep.
And I'm just like, that's too bad, because I had a really good time. Don't get me wrong. But I knew I was going to be a cop outside. I knew it was a stepping stone and I wasn't going to make a career of it. I did want to do a 2-year extension to do K9, but they screwed me on that too. So
I might have stayed for that. I was ready to get out. I saw the cards falling right. Mm-hmm. And I knew I was going to transition pretty quick into the police department. So,
yeah,
that wasn't even considered it, 9 months out. I wasn't even a consideration anymore.
So anything crazy happen? Deployments, anything like that? Was there any wars going on while you were in?
No, I served in the Cold War. I mean, when I was in Korea, there was patrols from North Korea that would sneak over the DMZ and come down, and We actually had people killed around our base by these patrols.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So they were coming over to like assassin style.
Spying and got caught.
Oh, so you guys were nailing them.
No, I mean, actually, I don't know if we caught a single one of them. They would get in and kill civilians, take their clothes, and be around the base.
Oh, no shit.
And I think it was more, just out there surveying what's going on.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I was there during the Cold War. So, I mean, there was a lot going on behind the scenes that we never knew about.
Yeah. Yeah. That would be fun. That'd be a good time, though.
Yeah.
How was the living conditions then?
It wasn't bad. Korea was good. We had Koreans that took care of us in the barracks.
Okay.
So, honestly, you got out of basic doing everything and got over there, and they did everything. They polished your boots and took care of your clothing, and you paid them every payday. I think it was $15 a payday or something.
No shit.
And they took care of about 6 or 8 GIs, and they honestly were probably the best paid Korean nationals on the base.
Wow.
And made it easy for us. And
yeah. Heck yeah. Worth the investment, right?
it was well worth the investment.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Saved you all that time.
Yep.
One less thing you got to worry about.
Yep. And then when I got to Altus, I think I'd lived in the dorm maybe 6 months, and then rented a house off base and lived over there with another security policeman.
So there's a lot of people that listen to the show with the idea of maybe getting into law enforcement. And for those that aren't old enough to get in law enforcement, one of my biggest pushes that I put on people is, I think, at least in the Air Force and the Navy, because we go through the same police training, I thought it was a good transition from 18 to 21 years of age, or, however long your enlistment is. But that is a great transition to get some experience under your belt, learn some of the law enforcement side to get you prepared to go do regular law enforcement.
No, I agree with that. You're talking about the calls or what you handled down in Lackland with graduations and all that kind of stuff. I think Lackland's a bit unique compared to most military bases.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll always have the domestics, and really there weren't thefts. There were fights at, the bowling alley and things like that. But
NCO clubs.
NCO clubs. Yeah, it was a very much of a fraction of what you do in today's law enforcement.
Yeah.
But it still was an introduction.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
Yeah. And I try not to minimize security forces guys or military police in general, because they got into it, to most of them, to do the law enforcement side, to get, you're getting your use of force training, you're getting your firearms training, you're getting a lot of the same stuff.
You do.
And it's like you said, to me, it's like being a cop in a small town. You sign up because you want to go stop robbers and murderers and sexual assault people, or whatever it is, thieves, and then you don't really have that. So what enforcement can you enforce? And then it's like, okay, no one speeds on my base. So
sadly, that's about it.
Nobody drinks and drives.
But see, there's parallels in our law enforcement here in the Metroplex, and that's DART. Everyone looks at DART police officers.
Oh yeah.
Saying, they write traffic tickets. They police that HOV lane. Well, I got to know a couple of the DART officers, and they were young guys. They'd only been there 3 or 4 years. And they go, we handle every type of call that any major city police department handles. We just don't go to their houses. We have it on bus stations. We have it on, DART stations.
Yeah.
And he goes, there's domestics, there's knifings and murders and everything else.
Homeless.
We serve warrants.
All that
we
stuff.
do all that stuff.
Yeah.
And so there's parallels that people kind of dismiss DART officers. Well, if you think about, the officers that were killed downtown Dallas,
yeah.
one of them was a DART officer because he was there.
He was there.
And he took action.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I like I said, we all sign up to do, I think, basically the same stuff. We all sign up because, like I said, we want to stop the big hitters and get all the, the food groups, guns, dope, money.
Yep.
So you get all that stuff. But if you're in an area that that doesn't happen daily, monthly, weekly, annually, there's some people that I know, officers in some cities, they've never had to draw their weapon.
No, I completely agree.
Years they've been on duty,
Yep.
never had to draw their weapon. And that's 82% of departments are like 10 officers or less.
Really?
In the nation. So that...
I didn't know what the number was.
Yeah.
That actually kind of surprises me.
So when you hear, when I hear people complain, like, don't you have anything better to do? Well, you got to think. This is a theory of mine. When these guys sign up to do all that stuff, they get kind of blue-balled when they get out into the police world. And what enforcement do you have? You got to do something.
Well, I mean, you were asking about policing in the 80s. And, we worked high crime areas.
Yeah.
We would sit there and watch some drug house and wait for a traffic violation, go stop them.
That was the war on drugs was
absolutely
huge.
Yeah, sure it was.
Yeah.
But I mean, everything from traffic stops, I've caught murderers, I've caught rapists, I've caught, down to the simple theft guy. But it's that proactive police work, and you were saying officers have never drawn their gun. Back in the 80s, I can't tell you. I'd probably tell you I had my gun in my hand 4 nights out of 5.
Yeah.
Whether it's standing on a traffic stop or, going into a house.
Yep.
And today, I just think everyone is so concerned about liability and public image and everything else. The officer is willing to put themselves in a whole lot more danger than to do the right thing and prepare for the situation they're going to.
Yeah. I know a lot of departments recently, they're switching. If you pull your gun out of your holster, you tell me what you think about this. Now you got to do a report.
Yeah, it's insane. I can tell you right now, you don't have to go any farther. It's absolutely insane.
So, my opinion, if you're making officers have to do a report, which this is going to weigh on their mind, that's going to create an unsafe officer because he may hesitate later on to draw his weapon when he needed to, whether it's a fraction of a second, and we know the fraction of a second can make all the difference.
Yep.
Whether you live or die, whether you get hurt. And if you think I'm being over dramatic, I can't give you an example right now because this is a free flowing conversation and I don't prepare for anything, but I guarantee we can find times where a fraction of a second would have made a big difference.
The big change in people's thought process is when you put them in a simulator.
Yeah.
And they have to make those snap decisions in that fraction of a second, and they see the difference, whether you had, your firearm in your holster or you were actually prepared at a low ready with it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a matter of living or dying.
Yep.
And today's society is just put officers behind the 8 ball. And it's not just a report if you pull your weapon. It's am I going to be tomorrow's headline? Am I going to get sued and lose everything in my house? And,
yeah.
There's so many things racing through your mind in that microsecond.
Did you hear New York? I think it's New York got rid of qualified immunity, I believe it was.
I know a couple places have. And I don't remember who it was. It may have been New York.
I think it's in New York. I don't know if it's all of New York or New York City PD or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know if it's local or the entire state.
Yeah. Could you imagine trying to be a cop with that?
No, I really can't.
There's no way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, as far as I understand about qualified immunity is like basically it doesn't matter if you're right or wrong. You can be sued. Straight up. Just be sued.
Well, essentially, if you're acting as a law enforcement officer, and everything that led up to your action was correct, even though that the facts were different than what was presented, you're immune from being sued, for example.
Right.
Where if they remove that qualified immunity, it's open season.
Yeah, and it's not, the department's not going to cover you. You get sued personally.
Right.
Shit. If that ever happened where I'm at, I would have to quit for my family's sake. I couldn't risk that.
But it's too. If they dropped it. Oh,
if they got rid of it. Yeah.
But it's too late if they drop it and you get sued. I mean, you're already neck deep in it.
Yeah. So, sorry, I go down rabbit holes.
Well, I don't think Texas will ever go that way. At least I hope it doesn't.
Yeah. Shit, it better not. It better not. I got a long career left. So
yeah, you do.
In my 9th year here? So
well, there you go.
I got a minute. So I'm gonna be here a while.
You do.
See if this show can keep going that long.
Well, I mean, I got out of the academy and did the first 11 years in patrol.
So you did 11 years in a patrol car.
Yeah, and
Hell yeah.
I didn't have any desire to promote at that time. I was having fun, as back when you had fun in patrol and you had good friends out there and you enjoyed going to work. And
yeah, and that's the difference today. And I know you're not in the grind anymore, but you still got plenty of friends that are, and including me. And I can tell you right now, there's nobody really. I mean, the ones that stay in patrol stand out. Everybody knows them. And back in the day, back when you were there, back when my old man was there was a ton of career patrolmen. A ton.
Absolutely there was.
And there were still standouts. You know, you had your cowboy and people like that, but
people had fun. I mean, if they put an overtime detail out there, I mean, the officers would fight each other trying to get their name on it because they wanted to stay longer and go do something fun.
Yeah.
So, and when I left in December of 2011, we would put an overtime detail out there and not a single person would sign up for it.
It's still,
it's
still rough.
Your generation would rather go home and play on the Xbox or, you know.
My generation, I don't know about that.
Oh, I think so.
I was analog to digital, sir.
Oh,
I was, I grew up, you had to come inside when the street lights came on, but yeah, it is. It's like officers today don't really work part-times. They're hard to get filled.
Yep.
And like you said, getting people to sign up for overtime. It's just people want to do their 40 hours and they don't want to take any more risk than that.
Well, that's true. You're out there on a part-time job or on an overtime detail. That increases your time out there to get called out.
Being the next headline.
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And, back in the 80s, we went years without pay raises.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just because we had fun, but it was kind of a necessity sometimes too to, bring in a little extra income. And,
yeah.
I think when I hired on, I think we made $31,000 a year. I mean, realize that the 80s was a little different than today.
Yeah.
But still 31 is not a whole lot to live on.
Hold on one second. I think my phone is ticking, dinging.
I hear something there.
My phone keeps dinging, I think. I forgot to mute it, and it's videoing, so it drives me crazy. And I don't think people like listening to it in their vehicles and stuff. So
probably not.
Anyway.
Anyway, 11 years in patrol, and they start.
Is it your phone?
I don't think so. No, mine's off. See, I'm a good host.
Is it coming from behind you? Is that where you're hearing it?
I don't know. You make me wear these earmuffs.
I know what it is. It's my work phone. Whew. Figured it out. All right. 11 years patrol.
So 11 years in patrol.
At it again.
And they wanted to. They had some community relation officers back then. There was one per side of town.
So they weren't called neighborhood patrol officers at the time.
I cannot remember what they were originally called, but they truly worked just community policing. They were very close with the mayor's office, trying to do that type of stuff.
Okay.
And they wanted to start a neighborhood program. So we all put in for it, and two or three of us were selected. So I honestly, this must have been 91, somewhere around there.
Okay.
I was the first neighborhood patrol officer. I essentially, myself and another officer essentially started the entire program.
Okay.
And
what year was this?
It had to be around 91.
Okay.
Because I was in Weed and Seed in 92.
Okay.
So this was in South Division, and in 91, there was two of us doing neighborhood patrol as community policing officers. But back then, enforcement was part of community policing.
Yes.
Not only did you go out there and talk to the neighborhoods and try to do the broken windows and high weeds in the alleys, but you also worked the dope houses. And I went on warrants, and I helped the officers on calls. And
yeah.
So it was a little different than my understanding it is today.
We still have some, they're called NPOs now, but they're still the standouts. They do all of that. And those are the ones that, like, on the east side. I work with those guys quite regularly because they still have the heartbeat of their beat because they do exactly what you're talking about. But then there's the other side.
Well, and in every division you have the standout, and you have people that do just what's necessary to not get fired.
They focus more on just the community side, and they don't get into the enforcement side. Right. They depend on everybody else.
So I was at South Division as an MPO for, I don't know, 3 months, and that's when the federal program Weed and Seed was approved.
Okay, explain Weed and Seed, because guys, when you hear about Weed and Seed, to me, that is the heyday of police work. I never heard of anything cooler, even to this day.
It was epic.
It really was. I think it's amazing.
And it was federally funded, and they picked an area on the east side of town and had very distinctive boundaries. And the idea was to weed out the criminals and reseed it with jobs and clean up the communities and try to get people in a better position living in those communities.
Okay.
That was the only thing that we did.
So you're not there just doing damage and not helping regrow it. You're out there actually trying to.
No, part of what was funded was a community group that would find jobs at airports and find, ways to get them to their jobs. And it was job fairs and cleaning up the neighborhood. But being a police officer, we were on the weeding part.
Yeah.
And officers in the city was still working 8-hour days, but we got to work 10-hour days. So we had 3 10-hour shifts overlapping. And that allowed us to be able to not only answer calls, but run our own warrants and be very, very proactive.
Yeah.
And the area they picked was one of the worst areas in the city.
Yeah.
A lot of drugs, a lot of prostitution, a lot of any crime you can think of, it existed in this area. So we started writing so many narcotic warrants that the narcotics division stopped giving us money to do the buys to write the warrants.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
You guys were eating all their impress funds up?
Well, we were writing more warrants than narcotics was.
Oh, you were making them look bad.
Yeah, that's what it boiled down to.
Okay.
So every payday, we threw a hat in the middle of the table, and everyone threw money in it to go buy dope so we could.
Their personal money?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Because we wanted to go out there and take care of these communities.
Yeah.
And
that's amazing.
Yeah, so, we did that, and we did a very good job out there. It was, like you said, it was just epic because it was proactive. It helped the people that was trapped in these communities and tried to drive out some of this crime element.
Yeah. No body cams then.
No body cams.
God, that would have been fun to see.
But, the media, the local media rode with us regularly.
Yeah.
And there's so many newscasts, from the early 90s that they were out there on warrants or arrests that we did and everything else.
Now, how was the community support then for something like Weed and Seed?
The people that had lived in those communities a long time and became victims and trapped in those communities, they loved us. Okay. Absolutely loved us. Some of the apartment complexes that could not drive out the criminal element, they loved us. We ran a program right before Weed and Seed where I organized a program. It's called Operation Fresh Start is what it was. And it was a complex, an apartment complex that was just overrun with drug dealers. Any time of day you'd see lookouts and people going in and out, and it was just everywhere. So I wrote up this detail and sent it through the department, and it got approved, which really amazed me. And I had 100 police officers with ATF, DEA, our narcotics, air support, mounted, patrol officers, MPOs, everybody. And we all lined up, and actually a local moving company donated a moving van, which we put SWAT in.
Oh, okay.
And we had an officer drive into the complex and back up to an apartment. And as soon as the lookouts saw the first car, they jumped out, started taking everybody down. And I don't remember the numbers now, but, we probably made 40 or 50 arrests.
Dang.
Mounted, caught him going over the back fence and seriously lassoed him and walked him back.
On horse.
On horse.
That is
It was an epic
amazing.
picture in the local paper. It really was, which probably would be criticized today.
Wow.
And the apartment complex after this took all the actions of repairing fences, putting gates up, new contracts with everyone that lived there.
So that was the fresh start.
That was the fresh start. Everyone did background investigations, and if you were caught doing any kind of criminal activity, you were immediately evicted. So it gave that complex a fresh start.
Okay.
And in fact, officers stood there at the apartment for months after that. I mean, it was just kind of a place that we hung out all the time.
Yeah.
So in that aspect, all the community that wanted to be there or trapped in those communities, they loved us. They absolutely loved the enforcement. And that's what they'd been wanting for years, but no one would do it.
Yeah. So let's compare that to today's enforcement from what you've seen, because you retired in 2011.
Correct.
So you're not that far removed. Times haven't changed that much.
No, I think they have. I think when I was leaving in 2011, it was moving extremely quick from, I don't want to overuse the word proactive policing, to policing now. People are afraid to get involved for the reasons we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And you think what do you think's the driving? You think social media is a big contributing factor to that?
No, I think all the activist groups and social media and, we saw protests in all the major cities for the last year. And I mean, I have zero tolerance for it. I mean, where you're right, you have every right in the world. Where your rights trample on my rights, your rights end. Okay. And I don't know if anyone disagrees with that. Then honestly, I think they're dumb as a box of rocks.
Okay.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, I'll respect any opinion you have or your beliefs, but you don't get to stomp on mine. And that's what we've seen for a year or 18 months here. I may not believe the same thing as other people. Doesn't make me wrong. It just makes me different.
Yeah. And that's fine. But
when these groups are marching through major cities and you have people eating dinner on the side, outside in a restaurant, and they come up there and harass them and throw drinks at them and, things like that, officers are afraid to get involved because of social media and what they're going to say, these officers did. Yeah. And that is completely different of what it was in the heyday of when I was an officer.
Yeah. And I get the argument that the counterpart makes. Well, if you're not breaking the law, you shouldn't be concerned. I get that.
True.
But if I have instincts. I see something bad, I act, I do whatever. I handle up, let's say. Okay? So let's say, like you said, you're sitting down, you're eating dinner on a sidewalk that's like an outdoor seating thing, and somebody comes up and throws water in your face and looks like they're about to throw the glass at you or whatever. To me, I see a possible ag assault.
Oh, there's going to be an assault.
not, I mean, from the person that just did that to you. Yeah. So me as an officer, I look at that and I'm like, all right, I need to take this person, down. Because I'm not a big use my Batman belt guy. I'd rather go hands-on.
But honestly, that didn't occur over the last 18 months.
Right. But
why didn't it occur?
What didn't occur?
Officers stepping in and taking action. There was sections of Texas cities that were completely shut down in restaurant and bar districts while these groups just roamed up and down harassing people, and officers wouldn't get in there and do anything.
Right. And that's what I'm saying is, like, now, because I don't have a specific example, which is probably bad on me, but officers they've gotten in trouble for doing what they're allowed to do.
Absolutely.
And if you get if one officer sees an example of an officer getting in trouble for doing what they're technically allowed to do, it's funny, I just had this conversation on social media today, that it's going to create hesitation in all the officers that see that example.
Well, there's a saying that went around last year. It's called FIDO. Fuck it, drive on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens, is that you start seeing officers getting sued, getting fired, and it lessens their involvement. Is it wrong? Yeah. Yeah, you have an obligation to get out there and do your job. I still believe that. But there's that human aspect of it. Well, I've got a family and 2 kids that I've got to think about too.
Yeah. And then there's just the process. Yeah, you'll be fine at the end. Let's just say that's your mindset. Yeah, I'll be fine at the end. But do I want to go through 6 months of bullshit?
Yeah. Do I want to go through that, go through the DA, go through a grand jury?
Yeah. Go through all that stress when I could just sit back,
drive on.
And drive on. I can make a report. I can observe and report.
Right.
And then let the detective decide to write a warrant later.
Well, and that's where I see a lot of policing today.
Yeah.
And it's just sad. And what that does is it puts more pressure on the citizens.
Yep.
You know, there's 95% of my friends are police officers or in the military, one of the two.
Yeah.
And I always believed that officers would get out there and do the right thing. Now, I make sure that I'm in a position that I can take care of myself all the time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But the culture here is more accepting of that.
Well, my wife, she saw me walking out into the house the other day with a black cylinder out of my car because it had been sitting out there, and I don't drive that car that much, and I knew it was getting hot during the summer. And she goes, "What's that?" And I said, "No, it's bear spray." She goes, "What?" I said, "Well, in case there's, streets blocked or riots or."
Yeah.
I said, it's
a good alternate.
A less than lethal opportunity to tell people to leave me alone.
Yeah.
But even that would probably be a headline for days around here. And what do you do?
Yeah.
You have to do whatever it takes to take care of yourself.
Yeah. People will expect you to let others destroy your car while you're in it.
No.
Rather than defend your property, which personally I don't agree with.
Neither do I.
I'm going to tell you, if you start beating on my car, we're going to have an issue. Can't tell you how I'm going to handle it because I don't know until I'm there. Every situation is different.
Well, and that's exactly right. Yeah.
But I can tell you, no one gets a free ride to beat the crap out of my car.
Well,
especially if I'm not doing anything. And
the way I've looked at the last 18 months, all it's done is empowered the weak-minded people out there following all this.
Yeah, the loud minority.
Well, you see it in San Francisco right now. They're shutting down Walgreens because they won't enforce thefts.
Yeah, they get $900 leeway or something like that.
$900 is a low misdemeanor.
Yeah, like they won't touch it unless it's $900. There's
videos of them walking in with trash sacks and just sweeping the shelves off and walking out, and nobody will do a thing.
I saw one had like a calculator out. He's adding up the price because I made that up. I didn't see that, but I could see him doing that. But,
it was this morning. There was another one going into Neiman Marcus and another one in another store, and in fact, in San Francisco, they shut down 6 or 7 Walgreens, I think is what they said.
Jeez.
I mean, corporations are there to make a profit.
Yeah.
And if they're losing every day,
they're all coming to Texas.
Yeah, and they're going to shut down stores. And now what's happened? Those communities don't have those stores.
Yeah.
And the communities that got looted and burned out, no one wants to rebuild there because there's no police and no one wants to get involved. And when the police get involved, they get crucified.
Yeah.
So. It's a vicious circle is what it is.
And I hate to say it, but police were adored. Police and fire were adored during 9/11. After that happened, I mean, man, when you fear an officer, then people just adored you. And I will say, where I'm an officer, I'm very blessed. I don't get the kickback that I see happening a lot in the media. I feel very supported. And that's why I try to make sure I don't do anything to screw up that support.
No, exactly. No, I get that. And, my entire career, I didn't care who I dealt with. It didn't make any difference. I mean, I was there for a reason.
Yeah.
And 90% of the time you're sent there, you're not making up a reason for being
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of people understand that. You're sent to these locations to deal with a problem.
I think a lot of times they hear those outliers, you know, an officer conducted a traffic stop. And they're like, oh, it was a bullshit traffic stop to begin with. Why were you even, there were other things going on. Why were you worried about that? And then it all goes down from there. But guys like you who've got the years of experience can attest to, like, look, this is how you keep bad guys on their toes, for one. They keep them guessing. And if they know that officers aren't doing anything because they're just sitting back and waiting for the calls, well, that's the best time to go out and start doing crime, because they're going to be so busy with the amount of calls going out there that proactive police officer proactiveness is gone. And if you have no proactiveness, bad guys are just, in my opinion, just going to swell up.
You know, a high call load or short staffing favors the criminal.
Yeah.
It always has, and it always will.
Yeah, big time. I'll never understand why cities will allow. I mean, I understand budget wise. There's a budget. Things have to suffer somewhere. But I look at police and fire as a root of a city. That's your roots. Take care of your roots. Everything else will grow.
No, I agree.
And, you know, businesses, you're a small business. How much would you survive if you had to constantly worry about your place getting broken into?
Well, I mean,
which probably might be an issue where you're at.
Well, honestly, you know, I'm not probably in the best part of town, but we've taken, you know, the steps needed. We got cameras and alarms and, you know, locked gates, and, you know, we do what we can.
Yeah. And you're lucky I'm not too far away.
Well, yeah, I would call you first.
Yeah, I'm right there.
But, you know, we were talking earlier about community support. And when I was at Weed and Seed, I also volunteered to in a search and rescue group, and I was their canine trainer. So we would train dogs to go find, you know, lost elderly people or lost kids. Or And
were you canine?
No. When I was in the Air Force, a couple of my good friends were the kennel master, and my roommate when I moved off base was a canine officer, and That's
funny. Same story.
Yeah, they taught me so much that I always loved working with dogs.
Yeah. So
I had a German Shepherd at the time and joined this group and learned how to train the Shepherd to go find people.
What was his name?
Logan.
That's a good dog. Yeah. That's a good name.
And he had one find to him, and believe it or not, it was on a lake that a old guy fell out of a John boat, sank to the bottom. Oh. And people don't realize that skin cells and oil floats to the top of the water, and the dogs can actually smell or bite the water and kind of locate it.
Wow.
And he was within about 12 feet of where he alerted and found him. So.
Okay.
But he's also in training, had 400-yard alerts and ran right to the person. So, you know, that's why I always love working with dogs.
Yeah.
Well, I was their training guy in this search and rescue group. So it was in August, and I was leaving the meeting about 9 p.m. and missed my exit. Honestly, I was extremely tired. I was still at Weed and Seed. We had a bunch of drive-bys, and we'd done the investigation all day long. Then I went to this training and this meeting. Hell, I was beat. I mean, that's just the bottom line.
Yeah.
And missed the exit to go to my house. So I took the next exit, ended up at a train crossing with the gates down and a train moving by. And everything kind of went sour from there because a lowrider came up besides me, and two gang members were in there. One was leaning out the window throwing gang signs.
At you?
And not at first.
Okay.
So I'm sitting there, and I'm in blue jeans and a white shirt, and I wasn't in uniform. And suddenly the attention focused on me and my truck, my Ford truck. And, you know, I tried to ignore them, and it was just wasn't happening. So I reached over and pulled out my duty weapon, which was in a briefcase on the front seat, and stuck it under my thigh and found my badge. And, you know, I figured at least I would badge him and tell him to go away.
Yeah.
And he turned around and sat down in the car. And I said, all right. And I look, and there's about 3 cars left on this train. And I go, well, when the gates go up, I'll call the local PD, tell them what I saw, and see if they want to do anything. Well, next thing I know, he's leaning out with a pistol in his hand. And now the focus is completely on me. So at that point, nothing else mattered because my entire focus was on him.
Yeah.
Because now that he's armed.
Because you're trapped.
Well, I am, because it was 1 or 2 cars in front of me and about 6 behind me and 4 or 5 behind him. And there was no way to turn out of this 2-lane road. So honestly, you're exactly right. I was trapped. I couldn't go anywhere.
What was the adrenaline? Had it hit yet? Or were you?
Oh, it had. But, you know, a lot of people talk about the body's reaction to that, about tunnel vision and how your hearing changes and how your sight changes and how time seems to slow down. I mean, and it's all true. So I'm sitting here watching this guy, and again, he turns around, sits down, and all this time there was extremely loud rap music being played, and I had rolled down my window about this far, and I suddenly realized there's no more music being played, and I hear a distinctive sound of a slide being racked from his car.
Oh, shit.
So I said, well, the game's on. I said, if he'll stay in his car, everything will be good. And I'll go back to that plan of calling the local PD. And now there's no reason they shouldn't stop him and, you know, figure out what's going on. And the next thing I know, he opens the door, steps out, and starts walking back to my car or back to my truck. And I don't remember making really any decisions, but focusing on him. Can't hear anything at this point. My vision's about this much on him and the gun. And he comes back, looks in the bed of my truck where there was a canine cage, and there was no dog, luckily, back there. Mm-hmm. And he turns and faces on my window. So I turn in the seat and just kind of scoot back, giving us a little distance. And he starts raising his hand, and as soon as the pistol breaks into the plane of the glass, I had already, you know, been ready for him, and I was involved in the shooting.
Damn.
So
you weren't even on duty.
No, I ended up shooting through my glass of my driver's window and hitting him. Well, he crawls back to the car. I realize there's a driver in this car now.
Oh, he wasn't the driver.
No, he wasn't. He was a passenger. So
now you got a second threat.
Exactly. And I see him laying there, and he's down. He's moving, but he's down. I go over there and try to get the driver out of the car, and he's locked on the steering wheel. He didn't want to let go.
Okay.
I convince him that he needs to get out of the car and drag him around to his friend's side.
I'm sure you said, please, sir, will you
I was very polite. Yeah, I was. And got them both on the ground there. And I yell at the guy that approached me. I said, where's the gun? And he wouldn't ask me. And honestly, I told him, I said, I'm going to shoot you again if you don't show me where that gun is.
Yeah. And
he goes, it's under the car. And I was able to step back a couple steps and see it.
Okay.
So I was comfortable that I knew where the gun was.
He wasn't getting to it.
He wasn't getting to it. And you got to remember, this was at a time where cell phones was not common.
I was going to say, how do you call someone now?
Well, I actually had my city radio, but because of the call load of that night, I never could get any airtime. Every time I called out, I was walked on. So luckily, the engineer for the train was flipping switches up there. He had a phone. He called the local PD.
Oh, so he heard it all go on.
Oh, he pretty much saw it all go on. He wasn't too far off.
Okay.
But you had mentioned I was trapped in line, and I was. But when I turned around, there was nobody there. Yeah, they all hit reverse, backed up to a local restaurant.
Yeah.
And to their credit, they all stayed there.
Nice.
No one left.
Everybody's good witnesses then.
They ended up getting 7 statements from the people saying, we don't know who the guy was, but he was screaming. He was a police officer, had a badge, and we saw, everything that occurred. And they wrote out nice statements of what actually happened.
Yeah.
Well, this guy was performing for the person in front of me. He was acting up for this. He evidently knew the girl that was driving that car.
Oh, he was just trying to show out.
He was.
Oh.
And her statement was that I had made racial slurs and tried to twist it up.
Okay.
Well, the detective that got on scene from that PD talked to her, went to the driver, and he essentially laid it out. He goes, you're either a co-actor in an aggravated assault or an attempted aggravated assault, or you're a very good witness telling me what happened. Well, he elected to be a very good witness. So he wrote out a statement, said, I didn't know he had a gun. He pulled it out from under the seat. Here's what he did. But that didn't erase what this girl had gone to the papers about, saying it was a racial incident.
Oh.
So earlier,
So she went to the paper with it.
well, she had a relative that was an activist out of Louisiana.
Okay.
They drove up here because they were going to spin everything up.
They wanted a cause.
Absolutely, they wanted a cause. And you had mentioned how the community accepted us in Weed and Seed. Well, all these people that we were there for, the people that were trapped in these communities, after they read the headlines and the paper for about 3 days about now I'm a racist police officer, they called the media and said, we'll meet you at the police sector. We want to talk to you about this officer. And they went up there and said, you know, that's the farthest from the truth. We know, we've known him for years.
Yeah.
And basically it killed that entire side of it in the media.
That's awesome.
And then the local PD got this activist in and laid out all 7 statements in front of them during the investigation, said, feel free to read them. Here's what we're working with. And they turned around and walked out after reading the statement saying, well, it's tragic, but we're not going to do anything. Because now the truth's laid out.
Right.
And they don't have, don't have any traction on their story.
No leverage.
So for me, that community relationship, what we talked about earlier, helped me tremendously.
Yeah.
And goes back to what I always believed. When you have your initial contact with someone, treat them like they're a relative until they give you a reason not to.
Yeah. Yep.
If they act like a good person, treat them like a good person.
Yeah.
If they start acting like an asshole, give them a warning and say, look, we're going to work this out. If they become aggressive, then take care of business.
Yep. I try to tell young officers.
But you can't do that today. I mean, honestly.
What do you mean you can't?
I think that in this current situation, those officers have that hesitation.
Yeah.
They allow them to put hands on them. They allow them to push them too far. They allow them to talk too much. And all that delay causes a situation where someone's going to get hurt.
Yep. I try to, obviously I'm not an instructor anymore, but one of the big things I'd like to push is let's watch any use of force video. Okay? Where an officer's involved. Whether it's something simple as a takedown or something is, using their firearm, whatever it is. I want you to watch it the first time muted. I don't want you to hear anything. I want you to see what's being done. If you can look at the video and tell me why everything's occurring just based on the actions they see, you're ready. Then let's listen to what he's saying. I do agree that what's being said can be important, but I don't think it's nearly as important as what I'm seeing.
I think they go hand in hand. I differ with you just a little bit on that.
Well, the example I'll give you is we got a good video of somebody saying, I'm not fighting. I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't fight. I'm not fighting you. I'm not. Meanwhile, he's fighting you the whole time.
Good point.
That's where I'm going.
No,
with that.
I agree with that.
So if you get hung up on what they're saying, and let's just say all you have is audio, because your body cam, if we're in a fight, you're not going to see shit on the body cam. All you're going to hear
in any direction but the right direction.
Yeah. Even if okay, so mine is worn on my chest area. So if we're grappling and I'm on you,
it's covered up.
It's covered.
Yeah.
But you're going to hear everything. And if you hear the bad guy saying, I'm not fighting you. I just want to go. I'm not trying. Meanwhile, another camera angle shows that this guy is waylaying.
Yeah, it's an all-out fight. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's why I try to tell people, I'm like, when I would review any use of force from an officer, first time, and I didn't make this up. I got it from somebody else and I adopted it. I thought it was a great idea. I watch. I want to see the actions. I want to try to put myself in their place without hearing what's being said, because a lot of times if I hear what's being said, it can skew me a little bit. If he's like, I'm going to fuck you up, but he's listening to everything you say and he's doing everything you tell him to do, I get amped up because this guy's saying he's going to mess me up.
But that is a factor.
Yeah, it is. It is a factor. That's why I'm saying it's just, I'm more about the actions I'm seeing rather than what I'm hearing.
Yep.
And I do go back. I don't just listen to it muted. I do go back. I want to hear what's being said. But when I'm trying to determine if what you did was appropriate or whatever, if I can get it just based off the motions and actions I see versus what I actually hear, well, shit, it's good. It's good to go.
Yeah.
So,
But, I mean, that experience taught me a lot. It really did. That one, training really works.
took over.
Well, it did, because I tell people all the time, I fired 2 shots out of a 45 in a cab of an F-150, single cab.
Oh, God, the concussion.
I never heard it.
Really?
I never heard it.
Man.
It never affected my hearing.
That's crazy.
And everything moved slower. Everything was crystal clear.
What were you shooting?
A Smith & Wesson 4506.
Okay. I automatically assumed you had a 1911 on you for some reason.
A 1911 was never approved by the department I worked for.
As it shouldn't be.
I just didn't have a 1911 that day off duty.
Okay.
Had they approved it, I would have carried one for 30 years that I worked, to be honest with you.
For those that don't know, every time you hear him make these 1911 jokes, it's to get under his skin.
Yeah.
And yes, that's one of his 1911s. And that's a 1911?
That's a 1911?
That's a 1911 as well.
You're getting better.
We'll get
getting
to
better.
I am getting better. I'm learning. Yeah. So we'll get to that stuff. We got a while to go. But okay, so you blasted off that gun in
Never
your
heard
truck.
it.
Never heard it.
Never made the conscious decision to pull a trigger. I responded to the training that I had received in the Air Force, in the police department, and knew when immediate threat was at a point where there was no return.
Yeah. That line in the sand where you're working the scenario out in the car while it's happening this.
But see, I talked to police academies for a long time after that, and it was a deal that I called the what if game. And it truly emphasized to me that as an officer, you have to play the what if game.
Yeah, all the time.
Well, we play the what if game sitting in this room right now. Yeah. What if someone walks in that door right now and attacks your family?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Well, I played it 1,000 times a day.
My ammo's right here.
Yeah.
For that gun.
Well, exactly. And I mean, I had played that scenario out in my head 1,000 times. What if I'm sitting in traffic and someone jumps out with a shotgun or a gun? What am I going to do? So it's the same thing why you see officers sit with their backs to the wall in a restaurant. Mm-hmm. That's really kind of an example of the what if game. What if someone walks in this restaurant and, causes violence or tries to rob it?
Yep.
So as an officer, if you're not playing the what if game every day, whether it's when you're going to work driving or on the way home or while you're bored in patrol, you're behind the curve.
So as a 30-year officer, and I don't know how long you and your wife and everybody have been together, but does your family know when you go to the restaurant, that's Dad's seat?
Yes, absolutely. My wife understands that. My son tries to take that chair just to be a dick.
Oh, okay. I don't have any sons.
And now he's old enough that I let him get by with it because he's fairly observant.
Okay.
Because he grew up with me.
I got you.
And
you gotta let him take over eventually.
Well, my youngest son. Let me clarify which one is the dick.
I gotcha. My family's the same way. We go to a restaurant, and my wife already, and it's awesome because she's not a cop. She's not any of that, but she just knows. She's like, that's tactically the best seat for him. And that, to me, like, for my wife, I was like, that's awesome. Like, that makes me happy.
I've been married 33 years.
Yeah.
And Amy, every once in a while, not paying attention, will sit down, and I'll stand there. She goes, Jesus.
Yeah.
And
until shit happens.
Well, exactly. And then she'll get moved.
Then she'll understand. Yeah.
But,
I had a friend where I works to her. I think he was at IKEA. An active shooter went out. And, but I think all he had was his 43, which for those that are listening, that's like a 7-round capacity. And that
one right there,
close to it. Well, it's
that's a 42, same size gun. Though.
Yeah. So it's all of a sudden he's like, he didn't feel as comfortable with that weapon. He didn't have to use it, and he didn't. He did the right thing in my opinion. He got his damn kids out of there.
Absolutely.
Which, listen, officers, rookies, 5 years or less. If you're out there and you're like, I'm gonna go hard charge with my family with me, you're in the wrong mindset. Please get your kids out of there.
Get you and anybody else around you.
Yeah, get everybody else away, and then if you can come back and help, okay. but
and
each damn
that's
kid's
almost
the same.
problematic now because you're going to have responding officers, and since
Yeah.
over the years some of the shootings, a long time ago, the policy was you wait outside till you get 3 or 4 officers together, you go in as a team.
Yeah.
That's not it anymore. You go in by yourself, or the first 2 officers get there, they go in by themselves. You don't want to be that guy in a white shirt and blue jeans.
Yep.
Trying to find the bad guy.
Yeah. I'll be the first to admit, some of the simulation training, which I'm sure you could go see it anytime you want just because you got the connections, but I did a scenario-based thing where it was like a theater shooting, okay, which has happened. So it's a theater shooting, and all of a sudden an off-duty pops out from a hallway, and I lit him up because I saw a gun in his hand. That's all I saw. I didn't see the badge that he was wearing around his neck.
Yep.
And luckily that was a scenario-based training, but it opened my eyes.
That's the whole reason for that training.
Yeah. And
honestly, based on the same thing, I still play the what if game. I mean, it wasn't too many years ago. We were sitting in a theater, and I'm sitting there looking around, waiting for the lights to dim and the movie to start. And my wife looked at me. She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, if someone comes in that door, what am I going to do?"
Yep.
Or if someone stands up down here in front of me, what am I going to do? I said, I can hit him in the head and him in the head, but that might be a body shot. And she goes, "What is wrong with you?"
Yeah.
I go, "Nothing."
Yeah.
It's the what if game.
Yeah.
I mean,
I just like to be prepared.
Yeah, I pray it never happens, but if it happens, then that little bit of training helps.
And I try to tell people, people are like, I know cops are hyper vigilant all the time. I am, but I'm not. It's not to a level, like if I'm sitting at the theater and I'm thinking that stuff, I'm not stressed out. It's just
I'm not either.
But
look at
what people look at us and they see and hear that we do that type of thing.
Look at the church on the west side of Fort Worth where they had an active shooter in it.
Was that Wedgwood?
No. This was recently.
After. Okay.
No, this was just last year, and it was a retired, I wanted to say it was a trooper or ranger or someone that stood up. And he not only is a retired law enforcement, but he taught handgun.
Oh, that's right. He was an instructor for
and
personal care.
He immediately stood up, charged the guy, and put him down immediately for anything. Yeah. So I guarantee you, he played the what if game a million times in that church.
Yep.
So
yeah, you're probably right. Be a good guy to get on here.
He would be.
Yeah.
And he lives out in Weatherford, so it wouldn't be hard to find him.
I'm trying to get. Did you watch the camper episode, Brandy?
I haven't watched it all. I've been interrupted with some travel that I've had to do for memorials.
So she's got a friend that I guess they did a story on him out of Fort Worth. He was wrongly convicted and did 20-something years. Did a long time. And they overturned it finally. And
I know who it is.
You do know who it is?
I worked with him.
You worked with him? Really?
I did.
Okay, so I'm trying to get him on the show. I'd love to hear his view of the criminal justice system and what he went through. So
I can't even imagine.
I can't either.
I'll leave it there.
I get sad thinking about that. Because you know how prison is. In a sense, that you got to survive there too. There's rules and. There's rules that are written and there's unwritten rules.
There is.
And the person you became after 20 years of prison is not the same person.
There's been a couple people, and I'm hoping it's someone else than the one I'm thinking. Although I've worked with 2 people that I think they got overturned.
Okay.
Out of the department, and one of them, I'm not sure you need to have him on here. The other one probably would be a good interview.
Yeah. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but so
it would be interesting.
It'd be a cool story.
But yeah, you're right. Jails and prisons, they all have their own little rules. And after I was involved in that shooting, I decided to move to the next step and
start promoting.
Yeah, I ended up going over to a CID as a detective in training.
Okay, so you were an officer.
I was.
So when the shooting happened, were you in Weed and Seed?
I was in Weed and Seed. So I was an MPO in Weed and Seed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So God, that's like the perfect combo.
Yeah. Well, it it was interesting because we got a lot of crap from people saying, you're just a community police officer. You don't need to be dealing with these gangs or anything like that. You don't have the qualifications to do it. And I'm going, dude, I've been here 11 freaking years, you know? And one lieutenant had made that comment to me. And after my shooting and after everything calmed down, I drove down to his unit. I go, you think I'm okay to deal with gang members now?
Yeah. Was his concern like a safety aspect?
Yeah, that is, you know, it's just.
That doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it doesn't. And it
if anybody needed to reach out to talk to gang members, it's the person that's.
Let's not go there because I don't think I'm going to agree with anything you're fixing to say.
Really?
No.
You don't think that if there's gang members in your beat, you don't think it's beneficial to have a relationship, some sort of communication with them?
You know, I think the relationship that needs to be happening is put them in prison. And then they can decide if they want to change their life around.
I don't disagree with that.
Because there's really not an option on this side.
But what I'm saying is, if you've got some sort of communication set up with them, it helps you in your job more.
The knowledge? Absolutely.
Yes.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Any knowledge is good.
Yeah, and that's all I'm getting at is, you know, if I
don't think you're going to go out there and save a soul.
No.
I'm sorry.
I've learned that the hard way.
I'm sorry. People aren't going to change until they're ready to change.
Yeah, I've tried.
And I've found that people don't change until something really dramatic happens.
I got a kid that from 12, he was stealing cars, 12 years old, crazy, and dealt with him as an officer, dealt with him as a detective, and I did the, you know, you got a future. I did that whole spiel, and I'm like, I tried, and I really thought that the kid, because he was athletically gifted as well, and I hate leaning on the athlete thing, but
it can be an out.
It's an out, yeah, in an area that there's not many outs. So, but then he ended up getting wrapped up in a homicide. He didn't commit the homicide, but he was there and was involved, and he's screwed. Yep. So it just, you know, you try to pick the ones that you think you can help, and sometimes that happens more often than not.
And I used to believe that. I really have. I'm very cynical now about it, and I'll tell you where I put.
It's where we're the most different.
Well, it is.
I'm still super optimistic,
and we had this conversation in the past.
Yeah.
But I put the entire blame on the parents. Lack of involvement.
Oh, sure.
Or just completely disconnected with them, didn't care.
Yeah.
But every kid, when they start school, have the same opportunity. Mm-hmm. If their parents support them, they can do well. There's a future ahead of them. If they ignore them, let them run out, you know, the streets till 3 or 4 in the morning, get involved in gangs, they've written off a kid.
Yeah.
So in my shooting, who do I blame? I don't blame the kid I shot. I blame his parents. He was 18 years old and had so many police involvements. It's ridiculous. At his parents' house.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's more often than not the most common factor I see with any juvenile or whatever that.
And I catch a lot of crap from citizens that I interact on social media about because, you know, I kind of voice my opinion and it doesn't go well sometimes.
Yeah, that's okay. Not everybody can agree. So,
well,
but not everybody has your experience.
I don't lose any sleep over it.
Yeah. So. And I can tell you from my experience that, especially with the younger generation, and when I say younger, I mean, you know, that it's so weird to say, but the 9-year-old to 18, it's a lack of parenting. And I understand the argument that I'm a single mother, I'm a single father, I have to work, I got to do this stuff. Yeah. What can I do?
But see,
that sucks.
What you do is you work harder to make sure it works.
Yeah.
I mean, today I was at a memorial for a good friend of mine. He was a detective. He was in the Marine Corps.
I'm sorry.
And in fact, him and the guy that I saw there were the guys that trained me to be a detective. I mean, the best detectives in the world. And I was talking to this other guy there, and I know his story. I mean, he was from a single mom raised him. Yeah. And they were extremely poor. He says, man, it was great. We'd go to a restaurant, order water, put a bunch of sugar in it. And, you know, it was sweet and it was good. And, you know, we had to save money. And I mean, it was all good.
Yeah.
And he ended up going in the Marine Corps, and he is one of the best detectives you'll ever see in your life. You know, he ended up going to college because of the Marine Corps. And so there's ways out.
Yeah.
But the parent has to be involved and keep them on the right track.
Yeah. And it sucks for those generations that they didn't have parents. They had the same upbringing that they're allowing their kid to have. You got generations.
Generational. Yeah.
A generation, yeah, where you've got no one to learn from on how to even be a parent, and then now you're a parent.
And since the 80s, the police department thinks they can go out there and have midnight basketball and all these little programs that says, you know, we're going to take your kids in here, we're going to play basketball with them, it's going to change them completely. No, it doesn't. Unless the parent's involved and puts down their foot.
There's a and this is the nerdy side of me with the schooling and whatnot that I did. One of the things I picked up on was this thing called cognitive behavioral therapy. And you hear that and you're like, okay, what the fuck is that? And
I'm going to need some whiskey for this.
Okay, so the gist of what I got from it, and this is where I think you're going to appreciate it. Yes, you do those things. You have the, let's say, the PAL program, the boxing thing, right? So you do that shit, and then that's great. You're every moment that kid's there learning how to box and do that stuff, he's learning discipline, leadership, all that stuff, and he's not on the streets doing stuff. But like you said, it doesn't matter if the parent isn't involved. Well, with this cognitive behavioral therapy thing, the parents are a part of the program. And if the parents don't follow their requirements, the kid's removed from the program. However, if the parent follows through with the program and they're learning how to parent, and that's very loose, like, because people don't like to be told how to parent. They're just learning basic skill sets.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So they're giving them skill sets. And as long as the parent stays a part of the program and is involved, the child gets to go through, and then they start earning scholarships the higher and longer that they stay in the programs. And to me, I thought that was a really awesome thing because the success rate of those parents that stay involved, like the numbers are super high of success rate where the kid goes on to finish high school, go into college and all that stuff.
I would be interested to see the number of how many parents stay involved.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have 100 parents involved and one stays, and then everything's successable, you're right. You have a great success out of that one
person.
Yeah.
But I couldn't give you the numbers.
Yeah.
And I didn't dig.
I didn't try to put it on the spot.
It was one of those things where I saw it and I was like, it's one of the first things I've seen where I'm like, that makes a lot of fucking sense.
Well, it does, but like you said, it's generational, and someone has to step up and say, there are opportunities out there.
Yeah.
Get through high school without having a criminal record. Join the military.
Yeah.
You know? It worked for me.
Yeah, it worked for me.
I mean,
I loved it.
It gave me an opportunity. I could have got out of the Air Force and gone to any number of companies in the Metroplex and gone to work.
Yep.
Actually, I thought about working for Miller Beer, but
okay. Out of all the domestic beers, that's the one I dislike the most.
But see, they were hiring.
But I get it.
When I got out of high school,
maybe it tastes better from the source.
Maybe, I don't know.
So, what do you think of all the craft beers that are out here
I'm not a beer drinker.
The DFW?
I'm not a beer drinker.
Not at all.
Well, the problem is it's how I process beer. Is I could drink whiskey and it doesn't affect me. I can drink 3 beers and someone is carrying me to the car. I mean, it's just weird.
Really?
I don't know how I metabolize them different.
Yeah.
But I just can't drink beer.
Now, I can enjoy a beer, maybe 2. But if I get more than, I just feel bloated and a mess. Like I don't get a different type of drunk or anything like that, but I just can't handle like these guys.
I would expect that out of a girl.
Yeah, these guys though, they can sit there and drink beer after beer after beer after beer. I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know how you do that.
I know.
I keep drinking whiskeys though.
Well, that's why I stay with whiskey.
Yeah, whiskey's nice. I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
TX, if you're listening, I'm running low. I'm gonna have to refill that.
It is running low.
That's my Garrett.
Myself, it's more Irish whiskey for me.
Okay, I like some Irish whiskey.
Proper 12 is my favorite right now.
So you like proper. Have you had the Jameson double barrel black?
I've tried them all.
I like that one a lot.
Jameson's good. Tullamore Dew is probably one of my favorites.
All right. I've had it. I just haven't purchased it. Like a bottle or anything.
Had I
like
known,
that.
I'd have brought you some.
Okay. So. Anybody that's a guest, like, feel free. I'm not supplying all you moochers with my whiskey, okay? So, all right, sir. So you do your 11 years of patrol.
Yep.
And you get involved in a shooting during the Weed and Sea. What year was that?
That was in August of 92.
Okay, so 92.
I'm sorry, August of 94.
Okay.
I started in Weed and Seed in 92.
Okay. So you get involved in your shooting. For officers out there today, what was the process like for your shooting? Because we know it's probably way different today.
Well, it went very smooth because the local PD that responded had a old school detective that was country as the day is long. And he got on the scene and he goes, I'm going to give you your time for your attorney to get on the scene. Then I want you to walk me through and let me know what happened. And so, I mean, he was very courteous. And in fact, the officer that got on scene made sure I had called our the rep and handed me a phone and says, if you haven't called him, here's my phone. You call him and get your attorney started out here. So that detective waited, and we walked through it. And, then I had to go to my local department and give my statement. And the local PD took my firearm because, everyone, what irritates me in social media says, we need to hold these officers responsible. Well, trust me, there was 2 police reports made on my shooting. One where I was the complainant and one where I was the actor. Meaning that I committed a murder or I defended myself.
Yeah.
So when you see those 2 reports, you're going,
And we're talking 94.
Yeah. So then it does go to a grand jury, and, this group of people you don't know gets to make this decision on what happened.
Okay. So he died on scene then?
Or
did he die at the hospital?
3 hours later at the hospital, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was another controversial part of the entire thing, is that at the time there was a ammunition made by Winchester called Black Talons. And that was what I carried because it was the most efficient ammunition out there. It prevented overpenetration. It was very effective. And we even had a local surgeon that worked on him that complained that it did too much damage for them to do any repairs. And you got to realize that my shooting took place at about 3.5 or 4 feet tops. And these bullets didn't overpenetrate. They did not leave his body. They changed directions. They cut some arteries. I mean, he honestly didn't have a chance because they could never stop the bleeding.
Okay.
But they made a political statement saying, these Black Talons were responsible for his death. I said, no, his actions were responsible for his death. I mean, so my PD, did the investigation, found out that they agreed with the local where my shooting occurred, and everything went to the grand jury. The grand jury no-billed me. And, but this was a 4 or 5 month process.
Yeah.
So I returned to duty after about a week and a half, I think, maybe a week. But it was all different. You're kind of a little nervous about all that. And I was still in the community that had supported me, kind of got me out of some of that shadowing in the media.
Yeah.
But
did you ever second guess yourself or anything like that?
I've never lost.
During that time where you...
No. Because as soon as he pointed under the car and showed me the pistol, I knew that I saw what I saw and what happened.
Yeah.
I never questioned. I never lost that night I don't think I slept just because it occurred about 9 p.m. By the time I got through with the local PD, it was midnight. Went downtown to my department and was there till 2 or 3 in the morning. And then, by the time I got home, I'm still so amped up I never went to sleep.
Damn, so they did all of that. Like, there was no, go home, get some sleep, nothing like that.
They had taken my pistol by the local PD where I was at. And in my department, they said, do you have another gun? Because if not, we're going to reissue one because you're a police officer. And I said, no, I'm good. So, everyone was trying to help me. And in fact, the local detective, after talking to my attorney and hearing my verbal statement, he goes, I don't want you to come down tonight. I don't need your written statement. You and your attorney get together and just bring me a statement down in the next day or so.
Okay.
So, I mean, everybody was cooperative once they talked to all the witnesses, heard my story, and saw that there really wasn't a discrepancy or concern about what happened.
I got you.
Yeah, so,
Okay.
we've both been in situations where you have the story is so fucked up that you have to do it all that night and get something on paper.
Yeah.
Luckily, this wasn't that type of situation.
Is there any advice that you'd have for officers out there? Like,
Always carry a gun and play the what if game.
Okay.
And be aware of your situation. I mean, situational awareness is, if that's not your number one thing you're doing, and you don't have to be nuts about it. You don't walk around with body armor off duty, but you just got to be aware of what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because times have changed. They really have.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just, it's not many people, as many officers as there are out there, not many have gone through what you've gone through, and they're all different. Every single one of them are different.
I probably know 10 officers in my department that's been involved in shootings. Every one of them was different.
Yeah.
Every one of them.
I'm hoping to get Johnny Bell on here.
Johnny Bell would have a great story.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is the most hardcore motherfucker I've ever met.
He is.
I mean,
without a doubt.
Yep. So I would love to get Johnny in here and tell that story. But okay, so you get involved with that. Everything gets no build, meaning he wasn't even put through trial. They believed he was justified, and then you decide, all right, time to move up.
So I did the detective in training for a while. While I'm doing the detective in training, I studied for the corporal detective test, passed it, and they just left me where I was at. In that CID.
How was the competition back then?
Not what I see it is today.
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot of test takers, but we didn't have a lot of people leaving. But we were so short and funding was changing that a lot of times every promotional test got completely filled. I mean, they ran it to the end.
Okay.
And, we established I was not a real smart person, so I didn't go to college. I mean, I didn't want to go to college is what it was. And so, I was in the middle of the road taking promotional tests, but because the entire list made it, I made it.
Yeah.
And, I'm not ashamed to say that. I mean, I'm just not a great test taker. I mean, I understand what all is involved. But,
yep.
I stayed there in that CID until a conflict arrived between me and my supervisor.
Ooh.
Now, I tease people all the time. I said, when I retire, I'm not sure who was happiest, me or the department. So
probably the department.
That's where my money is. And left that CID after some discussion, visit with the chief of police, and he agreed with me and said, report to the North CID tomorrow.
Okay. So CID, for people wondering, that's just general assignment. You're getting the wide range of cases.
From theft to aggravated assault.
Yeah, you get everything. Shootings, all that stuff.
Yep.
So
I ended up going to North CID, and I think I was up there for a couple years, and started studying for the next promotional tests when I was eligible and promoted to sergeant. And I don't know of any sergeant that is freshly promoted that didn't go to patrol. And that's what happened to me. I went to second shift on the south side of the town in a patrol position and stayed there only a year and was accepted to go back to a CID as a sergeant.
Oh, okay.
So
you were over detective.
So as a detective, I was in east and north, went to south as a sergeant.
Okay.
And was there 3.5 years, if I remember right, and worked a trade with another sergeant who was in violent crimes downtown. And him and I swapped positions, and I took over sexual assaults for the city.
Okay.
So I was there for 3.5 years. Another conflict.
Weird.
I mean, it's like it happens a lot. But
fucking grumpy ass grandpa.
Well, as I told you before, I'm gonna do what's right. And I'm gonna speak my piece.
I know you will.
And some people just don't take that well.
Yeah.
They really don't, and they don't appreciate the value of that.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Yeah.
You've put me in my place many times.
Well,
I sit there. I'm like, you know what? He's got more experience.
I'd rather have someone tell me the truth and the hard truth.
Yeah.
Than
we can agree to disagree and still be friends.
Exactly.
But
I'm not going to lie or make up crap. And that's what they were expecting me to do.
Yeah. Placate.
Yeah. So I left. Actually, my wife and I went on vacation. And when I landed in California, I got a phone call from a lieutenant saying, "Hey, I see you're on a personnel order for a transfer." That's how I learned I was being tossed out of violent crimes.
Oh, okay.
So I went back to patrol on day shift for a while, and I was now nearing probably within 4 or 5 years of my retirement. And I told my wife, I said, I want to go back and have fun. So I signed up at the next sign up for a second shift, found a very young team. I think the oldest officer probably was 3 or 4 years on the department.
Okay.
And went to second shift and had fun until the day I walked out the door.
Nice.
Trying to do as much proactive stuff as we could.
Yeah.
Because still, this is 2011, and we were still at a point where we could. And retired on a high note, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I want to rewind a little bit and get your opinion as a CID sergeant. Okay. Because this is something I'm going through myself right now. I'm still in CID technically. As a sergeant over detectives.
You talk for a minute because I need to refill this.
Okay. So as a sergeant over detectives, what are the checks and balances of making sure they're doing their job? What did you do to make sure? And I don't want to, I'm not calling out anybody or anything like that. It's just I'm learning certain detectives do the job a different way than other ones.
Here is my belief, whether it was a patrol officer or as a CID sergeant, is that there's the point that you want to reach here. There's a lot of roads to get there. Although that I think my road's the best, it doesn't mean that's the only road to get there. So if you're investigating a case and you need to take a different route to get there, doesn't mean it's wrong. It may not be my way, but it's not wrong as long as you get the right results. That's all that matters. You find that the person is not guilty, or you find the person that's guilty, you recover the property, whatever the goal of this investigation is. Back then, I mean, I was fortunate, with the exception of maybe one or two, and I've supervised a lot of detectives. I had people that truly liked doing their job, did their job well, and I didn't have to look over their shoulder. By the time I left, the CID sergeants were so tasked with reading reports, reading supplements, following up on everything that their detectives did. They never got to go out there and do what they should be doing, and that's trying to better the detectives, help them with their cases, find training. When I was in violent crime, I was able to get a training grant because I had 5 detectives, 5 monitors that monitored all the sex offenders in the city, 5 sexual assault detectives, and I was able to get a grant for training and travel. Did it 3 years in a row. I got $40,000 a year.
Nice.
So we found classes to travel all over the country to get the best training possible for sexual assault.
Okay.
And in 3 years, I would put those detectives and monitors against anybody in the state.
Yeah.
And I encouraged, and they wanted to, is that the officers with the monitors would work with the detectives on their cases. If there was some field work that needed to be done, the officers helped them do it.
Yeah.
While monitoring the offenders that lived in the city. So we had a great organization, and I didn't have to come in behind them and make sure they were doing their jobs.
Yeah.
Because they did. They all did their jobs. Now, like I said, I understand that there is so much concern about liability and a report not being handled correctly that the sergeants are just admin people. That's all they are. They're no longer out there trying to lead them.
let's break away from just CID. Let's talk about sergeants, because you ended your career in patrol. So as a sergeant in patrol, knowing what you know about today's patrol work, how do you, if you got to sit in the driver's seat, how do you let your sergeants behave? How do you let them do their job today?
I don't think anything's changed. I mean, there's more risk, but as a patrol sergeant, I looked at the officers. I said, look, I expect you to go out there and do your job, make good decisions, not only good decisions, but make a decision. But if you really need me, give me a call. I'll be glad to throw in my 2 cents. And if it, turns into a shitstorm, I'll be there for you.
Yeah.
And that's really all I can tell you. But if you go out there and do nothing, don't do your job, you're constantly screwing up, I'll find you someplace else to work. I mean, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Because there's no sense in that.
Yeah.
It's detrimental not only to that officer, but to his teammates and everybody else.
Okay. If you were to be able to have a one-on-one with, let's say, the decision maker of police work in general for the nation, like, what are the fixes what's the direction law enforcement needs to head today to improve relations with the community, to lower crime? Because violent crime, I want to say it's on a rise everywhere.
There's not a want to say it.
Because even where I'm working, it's on the rise. And I still sit back and say, it's still a great place to work. It's not, the violent crime isn't making me concerned, but I look at other places and I'm like, holy cow, it's.
My advice is that they need to go back to proactive policing.
Okay.
They need to get prosecutors that actually will prosecute every crime. Mm-hmm. And, everyone talks about gun violence. It's not the gun that's causing the violence. It's the person that's picking it up. Mm-hmm. But you prosecute that person to the max if they're involved in a gun crime. We saw it in Weed and Seed because we were able to file firearm offenses federally, and it didn't take any time at all for the criminals in that community to realize that if you got filed on federally, it's day for day. Mm-hmm. You got 10 years, you serve 10 years. But if you got filed on the state for 10 years, you might do 4. So they suddenly learned that through this federal program, one for one day means a lot. So apply that today. Maximum prosecution, mm-hmm. Be proactive, support the cops, and don't headhunt them, and don't go nuts saying everyone's a racist, because they're not. I mean, I've worked with, I don't even know how many thousands of police officers. Everyone gets up every day and wants to go out and do the job, and they don't care who they go out and help. Yeah. Period.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to point it out. They're out there trying to help people. They're not out there trying to pick at some crazy individual.
But things get completely blown out of proportion. If you assign me to a predominantly white neighborhood, mm-hmm. and then you look at my tickets saying, man, this guy hates white people. Well, no. It's because everyone in the neighborhood's white. Okay. Or if it's a Hispanic neighborhood or a black.
I see.
So, but the media is not taking that in consideration. They're making headlines is all they're doing.
I got you.
And it's detrimental to the officers.
It bleeds, it leads type thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but every officer I know, when they flip the lights on to make a traffic stop, I guarantee you 95% of them don't even know what the race of the driver is.
Yeah. Especially at night. That's one of the big arguments I make. Yeah. And I've had people, I walk up on them, hey, license, insurance, and what'd you pull me over for? I'll get to that in a second. Give me your license, your insurance. And you racist ass cop, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what part of you thinks I could see through this dark ass tent at night behind you? You know what I mean?
But that's the line right now. And it's being supported by activists in the media, and it's getting spun up, and we're right back to that Fido because officers are going, why do I need to put up with it?
And I think part of the driving factor is the outliers where that stuff has been proven. There have been racist cops. There have been people that have been shown. But how can you paint that brush so wide based on the actions of these people? Hold them assholes accountable. And I think good cops hate bad cops more than anybody.
Well, they do. And cops that are making mistakes. And, you know, I had this conversation with someone the other day. There's mistakes from the heart and mistakes from the mind.
Yep.
If you are out there trying to do the right thing and it goes bad, that is a mistake. That is just a mental mistake. That's all it is.
Salvageable.
If you are that racist cop that says, you know, I'm going to go out there and find these people and prosecute them and just punish them, that's a mistake from the heart. Your heart's dark.
Yep. Or even if it's not a race thing, it's just a chip on the shoulder, you know.
You're right. It could be anything.
Yeah. The hotheads, any of those, you know. I'm with you. And tell me what you think about this, because I know you don't listen to every episode, but I bring this up quite a bit, that one of my personal theories is, you know, obviously good cops, nobody hates a bad cop more than the good cops, but in a city that supports you, this is part of my theory, if a city supports you, your police officers, we are more likely to hold other officers accountable for even the more minor things than a department where they're not supported. And now that us versus them becomes amplified.
No, I think that's true. But I also think that we've lost the camaraderie in law enforcement. Everyone's attacking the thin blue line as something that goes against the community, and it's the police, it's them against us. And it's not, but you have to have that camaraderie to trust the person that's backing you up, or to trust the person that's going to respond when you're screaming on the radio, getting your butt whipped.
Yep.
So, but we've lost that camaraderie in law enforcement, and I don't know how that gets back. We have people that rather go home and play Xbox than sign up for a detail that really may catch a criminal.
Yeah.
You know, a bad guy. And
and I honestly don't know the answer to that either.
I don't know how to get that back, but they're all hand in hand. You can't divide, you can't slice and dice that up and say they're different segments. They're all touching and they're all.
Yeah. And I don't think there's an easy answer for anything. But if to address, you know, how do you get the camaraderie? I think good leadership weighs on that heavily, because I've seen teams that I just look at with envy, where I'm like, I want to work with that, because they are, you know, off duty. They're having their own little pizza parties, and just giving examples where all their kids are hanging out and all that stuff. And you look and you're like, that's how it should be.
And that's the way it was when I was working.
But that's all based, to me, on a good sergeant.
It can be.
For the most part, because not every team's ran by a sergeant. Some teams it's just, you know, a lieutenant and some officers or whatever it is. But when you have a badass sergeant that can bring the team together, that may not have never gotten together, and anybody can do that on a team. I think anybody could be that ringleader, but damn, a good sergeant, man, they can really bring that camaraderie around.
Well, I was fortunate to have really good people that worked with me and for me, and made it easy for me.
Yeah.
I know a lot of sergeants didn't have maybe the same experience as I did as a sergeant. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying that everyone that worked for me was the perfect officer.
Yeah.
I had some that challenged my abilities 100%.
Yeah.
And some of those I just couldn't fix.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was people above me, you know, ensuring nothing happened to them, or didn't want to get involved in it or something like that, even though they shouldn't be in the jobs they were in.
Yeah.
You know, there's some battles you just couldn't win, and that was one of them. That I can think of 2 or 3 examples that I just couldn't win.
And I could see you being the person like, look, I've done everything I know to do. You can stay on the team, or you can move on and see if there's another sergeant that can help you out, because I can't.
and I tried that with a couple of them, and then they were protected by other people that liked them. And, you know, I was stuck supervising. So
I gotcha.
You do what you have to do.
Okay. So you go through, you do your sergeant thing, you end on a high note, what it sounds like.
Did.
And it's funny that you say that, because I caught my dad retiring as a lieutenant and riding out with rookies a lot. And you know how it is. People don't want to be by their lieutenant. Big cities,
You know what? It depends on the lieutenant.
And it does.
Because I could make a call.
The fuck was that?
Who is here?
I think Siri just kicked in.
I think Siri's talking to you. But I could make a call with one of my officers or one of my detectives or a call out with them. They didn't care.
Yeah.
Because they knew that I wasn't going to walk in there and say, all right, I'm in charge. I don't want to be in charge. It's your case. It's your call. But I'm over here if you need something. You know, if you need me to go stretch crime scene tape or direct traffic, I'm your guy. I don't mind doing that. And
I've been fortunate. I've always ran into sergeants like you. Like, whether I work for them or if I have to deal with them on a scene or something where they're coming to take in.
I wasn't always fortunate like that. I had some sergeants that when I promoted sergeant, I said, all I have to do is nothing these people did when I worked for them. And I'm golden.
Yeah.
I really am. I can list names and things that really drove me nuts. And I made sure I never did any of that stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, the officer was going, what's wrong with this guy? He's leaving us alone.
Yeah.
Well, I expect you to do your job.
Yep. Now, I've had some supervisors where I'm sitting back and I'm like, you're just not supervising. And which is fine because I know how to do my job. And at the time, I was good to go. They just weren't. They were just not doing anything.
Well, I mean, maybe that was the impression some people had for me.
Yeah.
But I ensured I knew where every officer was. Mm-hmm. I always had a radio on and I knew where people were going.
Yeah.
You know, as soon as a pursuit started or someone calling for help.
Approved.
Well, approved. And I was headed that way.
Yeah.
Not because they really needed me, but I was going to make sure I did damage control.
Yeah.
And make sure things were done right.
Yeah.
But there's sergeants out there that never left the office. Those are the people that weren't doing their officers any favors.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I guess I got lucky. And maybe I had some lackluster sergeants, but the opportunity never arose. They weren't there long enough or whatever it was. So I tell people I got lucky. I just never had a bad incident with a sergeant.
It was like your dad promoted to lieutenant, and I made the conscious decision not to take the next promotional test.
Yeah.
Because I thought as a sergeant I could do more as a sergeant than I could as a lieutenant.
Yeah.
And that's where I enjoyed working.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't.
I think mine did it more just to be able to kick his feet up on a desk.
He did that well.
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah, he had the man's posture was perfect for feet up on a desk and just sitting back and not really doing.
I may have a picture of him doing that too.
I'm sure there's a lot out there. Told him he's the only man I know that did lieutenant for 5+ years and his uniform was pristine. I don't know that it ever got any sweat in it. So
exactly.
he's not here to defend himself.
That's all right. He'll listen to this.
I love it. So, all right, sir. So you do the Sarge thing, you retire, and you somehow, please tell me, because I still am not fully aware, how the fuck did you get into start messing with guns? Because in all of your story, it's not coming up.
Well, we'll jump back all the way to Altus, Oklahoma.
Okay.
When my roommate at the time, Tim Harrigan, who is a retired Wichita Falls officer now, who retired out of the Air Force as a master sergeant. He was a K-9 officer. And we would go shooting all the time. I had a 1911 that I shot all the time.
Okay.
And I was so poor then that there was a thing called a Lee reloader that you reloaded one bullet at a time. All the processes were done with a hammer and little dies. And I mean, that's how I got ammunition. So we would go shoot quite a bit, and I enjoyed it. And I started learning more about 1911s. So even though that my department never approved it, there was always a 1911 pretty close.
Okay.
When I worked and when I was off duty.
Okay.
We'll just leave it like that. And I figured I could justify it if ever shit went really bad.
Well, you're retired. They can't do shit now.
Yeah, they can't do anything now. So as I got close to retirement, and I was fortunate. I mean, don't get me wrong. I went to the Air Force 4 years, immediately into the police department, worked 30 years. Mm-hmm. Made me 53 when I retired.
Yeah.
Way too young to sit on the back porch smoking cigars and drinking whiskey.
I would argue with that, but
well, I do today. Yeah. So I wanted to find something to do. So I wanted to build and work on 1911s.
Yes.
So I started doing all the research on it and said, for me to do it correctly, I need to be taught by someone that is well known for it. And throughout the country, there's 4 or 5 people that are very well known in the 1911 world. Bill Wilson, for example. And
I'll take your word for it.
Well, I realize you're not a gun guy. Bill Lothridge is another guy, and he owns a company called Cylinder and Slide. So I was fortunate to get into a custom class put on by Bill, who is probably one of the top 3 1911 people in the world. So I drove to Joplin, Missouri, spent 6 days in a class. There was me and 5 other people being taught by Bill and his top gunsmith. When I left there, I realized that I didn't know shit about 1911s. I could replace parts, but I didn't know how to build a custom 1911 until I went through that class.
Okay.
In fact, this gun is the one I built in that class.
Oh, okay.
That has been the model for every gun I've built past that since then.
Okay, so let's go down a little rabbit hole. Where did you think this gun was about a week ago?
Dude. As part of my business, I'm a licensed gun dealer.
Yep.
We do regular inventories to make sure we're being responsible. We know where all our guns are, and we're doing this inventory. And we get down, and I go, "Where's my 1911?"
The original.
And my partner goes, "Didn't you take it home?" I go, "No, I didn't take it home." Well, maybe I took it home. So I went home and went through my gun safes and looked everywhere for it. Couldn't find it. And I came back to the shop, did another inventory. It wasn't in the shop. It wasn't at my house. And all I could think of is that we have it sitting out as a display quite a bit at the shop, that someone had gone behind our counter, pocketed it, and left. So I am pissed off. I mean, I am so mad I can't see straight. Not that it can't be rebuilt or replaced.
It's sentimental.
But it's sentimental.
Yeah.
So I call the PD. I make a stolen gun report. Tell them, I said, I haven't seen it in like 3.5 weeks. And I'm mad. Well, at the end of the week, I had to take a trip with my wife to go to a memorial service in Myrtle Beach. This is your Brandy podcast.
Okay, yeah.
You post a screenshot of you and Brandy talking on the podcast.
Yes.
I wake up about 3 o'clock in the morning in Myrtle Beach. Phone's there, and I couldn't go back to sleep. I pull it up. I see your picture, and I go,
motherfucker.
That's my 1911 sitting on his desk, and I remember that you came by the shop, and I gave it to you. And so I had to come back, cancel the report, eat a little crow, get crap from my partner about, old in memory and all that kind of crap, So, yeah, that's the story on that, and I'm really glad to see it, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, so continue, sir.
I just don't remember where I was at.
You were talking about how you had went through the class.
Yeah, I went through the class and came back, and as I retired, all I wanted to do is sit in my garage, build a pistol, 1 or 2 a month. Hell, 1 a month would have been good.
Which is where this pistol had started.
It is.
Yep.
So as I built a 1911, I would have to get it blued or Cerakoted. And I was having to add quite a bit of money to it to get it Cerakoted by somebody else and shipping and all that kind of crap. So I said, maybe I can learn to Cerakote and just do the 1911s here in the garage. And I tried it, and I said, well, I can do it, but I would be better if I was taught how to do it correctly. So I went to White City, Oregon, where Cerakote is, got certified by them. And Cerakote doesn't promote Cerakote. They promote their certified applicators.
Okay.
So I went through their class. It was a 2-day class, and came back. And within about 3 months, my phone's ringing off the hook, people wanting Cerakote work done.
Oh, because they were giving your...
Their website says, find a certified applicator, and there I am.
Yeah.
So now I had no time to build pistols, and all I was doing Cerakoting, and it grew from there. I mean, I never advertised a single bit for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I grew so much that I told my wife, I said, I either have to cut business in half or expand. and we expanded into a building. So
Yeah. If y'all would have seen his garage, it was out of control.
Yep.
It was so crowded. And I'm looking, and it's chaos to me. But he knew mostly where everything was.
well, mostly, and now my shop is the same way. Our business has grown so much. Our shop is crowded, and we really need to expand.
Oh, really? Is it already starting to?
Yeah, we honestly need to build a building and move out of it.
Okay. Get you a barn dominium, bro.
Hey,
Dude,
not against
I'm
it.
telling you, if you had a gun shop that had, the gun area, the kind of how you got going, and then you got your little chill area.
Bar, stripper pole. Things
Yeah,
like that. Okay.
yeah, you got
I'm
that.
with you, okay,
So
yeah.
if you had, think barn dominium style where you got that loft up there, and that's the hangout. Like chill up there. I'll be down here.
Do
building.
podcasts up there.
Heck yeah! Oh man, if you got me
Live from.
yeah,
So
because this thing,
you could be there.
You see how small this is, right? This is
Yeah.
crowded.
Yeah, it is.
This is crowded. Now, I got lucky that my man cave is so cool.
Well, I'm worried about the
fits.
7 flashlights you have pointed at us, but
Yeah,
that's-
and lighting is terrible.
That's pretty tough.
Yeah, so if it's ghetto. I get it.
Hey.
It's you make do with what you got. So
But anyway, that's where I was, and we expanded, and at that point, I decided to take on a partner.
so how did that relationship come about?
Well, Steve worked for another gun company as their gunsmith,
Okay.
and he decided to do something different, but he continued to gunsmith out of his garage. He lived south of me by 20 minutes. So if I had a gun come in that I couldn't take apart, I would take it down to him. He would strip it. I would pick it up. I would coat it, take it back to him. He would put it back together.
Oh, okay.
And as simple as that sounds, things get lost when you're handling a gun and over that kind of distance.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, we were having to buy parts and replace them and, do the customer right.
Yep.
So when I expanded, wanting to get into a building, I talked to him. I said, if you want to be involved, then let's move into a building together. We'll have gunsmithing and Cerakote in the same building. And from there, that's where it's gone. And, we doubled business last year. I mean, because we're in the same business.
What I like about him is he will experiment. Like, he gets an idea and he'll just get a gun that's made for basically destroying if that's what ends up happening. But he'll grind on it, drill on it, do whatever, and come up with some cool ass concepts.
And Steve does. Steve, I mean, we have a mill in our shop, and he, throws an end mill in it and starts doing slide cuts, and he's come up with some great stuff. In fact, the little Glock 92 there, he did that slide.
Let's take a look. All right. So we got this guy. I assure you, we already made sure everything was unloaded beforehand. So go ahead and give me the breakdown, sir.
Well, I mean, it's a Glock 92. Steve did the custom mill cuts on it, and we did a custom Cerakote job on it. We have some laser engraving on it. That actually is Steve's wife's gun, and we can do just about any kind of coating or any kind of work. I mean, that's just really what it boils down to. Hand me that SIG right there real quick.
All right.
And this one, he also did some custom cuts on it.
Okay.
And as you said, everything is completely unloaded.
Yes, sir.
But those custom cuts up there, he did that on the slide. He added a what's called a standoff device on the front, where you can actually press the gun against a hard surface and it doesn't take it out of battery. So honestly, if you're in close quarters to fight, you can press it against somebody and it won't take the gun out of battery. And again, custom Cerakote on it, and
Yes, these guns are sweet, and I can tell you because I'm a Glock guy. I love Glocks, but the grip and the comfort of these two weapons, especially because I tend to carry things like this. They're not just holding that would make me want one.
well, and sadly, when I got into this, I was never a Glock fan at all.
Oh, really?
I didn't shoot them well because I don't know if you can see on camera, the grip angle is a little different from 1911
Yeah.
Glocks, and you present them different.
Yeah.
But being in the industry, when someone says, I've never owned a gun, what should I buy?
Yeah.
I always recommend a Glock because they're safe, they're dependable, they're easy to learn, easy to manipulate.
Yeah.
They're an ideal gun for a one gun owner or for someone who's never shot a gun before.
My biggest hang up with a 1911 is just it's a single stack. That's my biggest hang up because I am not the greatest shot in the world. I want more rounds.
Well, you were a stat guy. So if you look at stats, the average police shooting is about 4 feet.
Yep.
And it's usually about 3 rounds.
Yeah. So I agree with you. Yeah. So we're holding off. In my opinion, we're holding off the best for last.
It is. So I brought another 1911.
This thing is fucking awesome.
This is a complete custom Colt Commander or a 1911. It's on a Commander frame. We had a young man working for us. And if you can see the slide, it's hand engraved. I'm trying to get close. And we obviously built it from the ground up. When I say it's a custom gun, every part on there is hand fit. When you get the frame and slide, you couldn't put it together with a sledgehammer. You couldn't hammer them together. So everything is either milled or hand filed to the clearances that we want. And this gun actually we built for 10-7 Outdoors, which is an organization that takes kids of fallen police officers out, and we take them out fishing and hunting.
Yeah.
So
I promote that on our Facebook account, and
you have, and we greatly appreciate it.
I have them permanently listed on there. So if anybody goes to our social media, to our Facebook account, the link directly to 10-7 is available, and it will always be available just because it's such a great cause, in my opinion. And I can tell you up front, I don't get anything back from them. So I'm promoting them just based on what they do.
Well, we greatly appreciate it. And out of disclosure, I'm a board member with 10-7, but there's no paid positions in 10-7. Everything that we raise goes to fund trips. Mm-hmm. And when I say fund trips, the last trip I was on, we had 2 kids from Alaska, 2 kids from Florida, and 1 kid from Mission, Texas. And 10-7 paid for their parent and the kids, flight, hotel, food, all the equipment on the trip, and this was a hunting trip in South Texas. And for both kids from Alaska and Florida, and the young man from Mission, Texas. We have ranchers that donate the hunts.
Oh, okay.
This was a high fence hunt by a gentleman that has a very nice ranch. He sells produce to small companies like Walmart. Yeah. And
very small.
But he is a generous gentleman that invites us out every year.
No shit.
And he invites us out, puts us up in a house there that's on the ranch, and then ranch hands and family take these kids out to stands, and the kids shoot deer that if you were a hunter to pay for this hunt, you'd be paying $8,000 or $9,000 to harvest these deer.
Yeah.
And these are the cull deer, as they call them, the ones they want to thin out the crowd, because it is management.
Yeah.
They just don't want too many deer on the property.
Gotcha.
So
how many? I mean, there's obviously more than 4 officers who fall in the line of duty each year.
Well, the organization was fall.
Is fallen officers correct?
It is. I mean, sadly, a news story right now is we're breaking a record this year of how many officers have been killed.
Right. So what I'm getting at is there a selection process?
The families contact 10-7.
Okay, so it's based on them reaching out.
We maintain a list and say, look, we have a hunt coming up or a Gulf fishing trip, mm-hmm. and we find out who's available, who can travel, and who can come down there for it.
Okay.
So we're always talking to multiple people, but it's about scheduling and getting people at the right place.
What type of feedback have you gotten from the kids? I'm just curious.
Well, that's the biggest thing is that it's not a one-time thing, is that our organization stays in touch not only with the kid, but the surviving parent, and relationships are built.
Yeah.
So, one of the new board members that's on 10-7 was a young man who's the son of a fallen police officer that we took out many years ago, and now is old enough to lead these fishing and hunting trips, and he's part of the board.
That's awesome.
So
that's good. How many years has this thing been going?
I wish I had the right number. I think it's 6 or 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you been a board member the whole time?
No,
or?
this is my second year as a board member.
Okay.
And it was
so you just heard about it? And
well, they came to me and needed a Glock for their gala for a fundraiser.
Okay.
So they brought a Glock, and I put some cool colors on it. And
you have been in the South a while.
Well,
it's a gala where I'm from. Not a gala.
Well, I don't care.
Sorry. You old redneck.
Anyway. I can leave right now.
You could leave. You probably forgot how to get out, but
probably. So anyway, I did that original one, and people are extremely generous because every year someone donates a very high quality lab or a hunting dog, and the live auction, people bid on this stuff.
Okay.
And we always provide, firearms for it, and we have hunts that these ranchers donate that you can bid on and get. So this year's is September 18th coming up, and it's going to be in Stockyard Station in Fort Worth, where we have a very well-known country singer that's going to be there.
Okay.
And if you go out to 10-7, I think you'll find out who it is. But we still have tables available. We still have some seats available. Okay. And if you're a businessman out there and you want to get, recognized for donating some stuff, all you have to do is get hold of us through the website.
Very cool.
And I'll be the first to admit the website is very basic.
Yeah.
And if you're a web designer and want to donate a little time, give me a call. But there's there's nobody that's paid in this organization.
Yeah.
And
100% goes to the
100%. We have a trailer that we throw everything in. That's really kind of the asset besides, some fishing poles and a few rifles.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like I've told a lot of people is like, it didn't take much convincing. I went to the website, I read up on it. You told me about it. And not that it took much more than you telling me about it, just knowing what you're doing. And I grew up hunting and fishing myself. So I know the value in doing that as a young kid, or even if they're older, there's a therapy to getting out in nature. And
there is, and like I said, it doesn't end there. We keep relationships with all these kids.
Yeah, and that's cool that you've got one that came back and is now part of it.
Yep.
That you don't hear about that often. So, well, what's on the horizon for your company?
It's a jump ball, to be honest with you, because sadly the firearm industry is somewhat politically driven.
Mm-hmm.
And we got 3 years of very undecisive directions that the politics are going to drive the firearm industry.
Okay. So 300 blackout ammo.
Yeah.
Where's that at?
Oh, I have no idea.
You built me a 300 blackout. Now, I have not shown it on here yet.
You should have bought some ammo.
Yeah. Even then, when I had it built, it was probably a bad time to have it built. But
ammo is returning. We're seeing it on the shelves, and through our distributors, we're seeing it.
Yeah.
But there's still that toilet paper pricing on it.
Yeah.
That people have sucked it up so much that pricing hadn't fallen back to what it should be.
And that's honestly, that's part of my beef, is knowing how much it was to where it's at now.
Yep.
And my refusal to bend. And that's
I agree.
That's my fault. But I've never wanted to shoot a gun more in my life than that gun. And
I would give you some 300 blackout ammo.
I don't have it.
I know I have like 2 boxes.
Yeah. So, and I get it. And like I said, if I even get a box, that's going to be to have in case I need the weapon for self-defense.
Right. And that 300 blackout pistol is one of the items that I'm talking about right now.
Yeah.
Because politically they're talking about pistol braces on firearms.
Okay. Yeah. Man, that gun you made me, though, was so sweet.
It is. I mean, there's no reason to think that gun is any more deadly than any other firearm.
Yeah.
But it's politically driven.
If it had a wood stock on it, everybody would be just fine.
Yeah.
Because it looks like a hunting rifle.
Yeah.
But that gun is so awesome. I love it, guys. I will put it on the show one day. I promise. I just kind of I've been waiting to Cerakote it. That was the thing. I didn't want to.
Oh, I think you've had one of our 300 blackouts up here. That tiger striped.
Oh yeah, that's right.
You had
that
one
was a
up here.
300, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was just like yours, except it looked cooler.
No, it didn't fold.
Oh, yours folds?
Yeah, mine's got the tactile off folder, and you put the Air Force approved.
Oh, yeah, the Cry Havoc.
Yeah,
that's a great story. Cry Havoc is.
Yeah, my gun completely. It's like a little 4x8 compact 300 rifle. So it's the shit.
I forgot we put that on there, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, man. That's part of the fun. If you guys get a gun built by him, just have an idea and tell them what you're trying to do, and they'll figure it out. Because I told him I want to fit this in a backpack. Is basically what I told him, and I said eventually I want to get a suppressor for it. I can't afford one right now, so I want to get it integrally suppressed. He's like, I have a guy. I know how to get all this done. This is what we're gonna do, and
this is the first step, right?
This is the first step, yeah, because. Yeah, obviously, unless you just have a shitload of money, you can't afford to. Not that it's your prices; it's just it costs money.
Well, pricing is another thing that's been affected over the last year. Is everyone bought up ammo? They bought up all the components. I mean, when we're trying to find and source some parts, it's really hard. But people have taken advantage of that, and jacked up prices too.
Yeah,
where our basic kit was X amount. Right now, it's probably up 40% over that, 40 or 50%. So, we can't give it away. So our prices had to go up a little bit. And
gotcha.
For an example, we do AR builders classes. We teach people how to take all the parts and put them together and build an AR-15. And obviously, they buy the builder's kit from us. They come in on a Saturday, and Steve walks them through building the entire gun, also talking about how it functions, things to look at, options, calibers, all that stuff.
That jarhead knows how to teach?
Yeah, it's hard to believe. You throw him a crayon or two, and he'll do anything.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, his teeth will be stained, but...
Well, green crayons, that's what he likes. And our kits, I forgot what we were doing the class for. I think we were doing the class for 600 at one time, maybe 700. And now we're at 850 just because parts increases.
Yeah.
So
damn, that sucks. Well, before we end this, sir, we're sitting at 2 hours and 21 minutes right now. It goes by quick, doesn't it?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Everybody has the same reaction. They can't believe it. How do people reach you? I know I have a commercial for you, but I don't feel like I do it justice. So
no, we're over here on the east side of Fort Worth. You can call us at 682-304-0363. Or email us at hrhinfo@hrhcombatarms.com.
Okay. And you guys are rocking and rolling, kicking butt, and looking to expand, it sounds like.
Well, that and firearms is one thing. But, in your little intro, you said, sporting equipment and stuff like that. We do a lot of car parts. We do a lot of hot rod parts.
Yeah.
If you're building a high horsepower engine, we do a lot of high temp stuff on turbos and headers and exhausts, and do piston coats. And, there's Cerakote has expanded not only into firearms, it's the #1 coating on firearms, but it's in aviation, it's in sporting equipment. There's a guy in Florida that his whole business is Cerakoting golf clubs. Aviation, all the hot parts on that. They do interior parts on aviation, on airplanes. So there's just a million uses for it. Mm-hmm. For marine applications, if do saltwater fishing, this is the best thing in the world to put on exposed parts because it's not affected by saltwater.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, this is extremely resistant to saltwater or solvents. You could throw your gun into a bucket of acetone and it's not going to affect it.
Nice. Okay. Well, that's cool.
So, Cerakote's got a great name and it provides a lot of services.
Very cool. Well, all right, brother. If you don't have anything else, I think I'm good to end it here because I plan on having you back. And then cool. I think we're going to have Steve on here.
You need to have Steve here. You can talk about, eating crayons in the Marine Corps.
Yeah, all that. Jarhead.
See, he was a machine gunner or armor. I think he was a machine gunner in the Marine Corps. So
I could picture him being.
He's probably got some stories, and he was overseas, so
yeah,
he's got some stories, and
very cool.
He actually attended a true gunsmithing school for 3.5 years. So he's
Dang.
He's not the guy that watched a bunch of videos on YouTube and learned how to be a gunsmith. He's a trained gunsmith.
I can attest. Any problems I've ever had, he's been able to figure them out. But all right, brother. I end it the same way every time. Little fist bump. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.